2, 1, bang.
So we were just talking about Kobe not shooting before games, and he absolutely did. And the story I was going to say was there's a dude that used to work with my dad, and he was telling me that his son was doing AAU basketball and was like super into it. And he happened to have a connection to Kobe, and he called Kobe up and he was like, hey, can you just practice with my son one day? Because the Air Force Base is right across from the practice facility here in El Segundo. Mm-hmm. And Kobe was like, yeah, sure, I'll take your son out. Have him meet me at 4. And this was like at 8 in the morning, right? And he was like, all right, word. So his son shows up at the practice facility at 4 p.m. and Kobe's not there. So the dad calls Kobe. He's like, dude, what the hell? And he goes, no, dude, 4 a.m. 4 a.m., son. And he was shooting the game that they had was like at 6 that night, the next night. So Kobe was straight up practicing from 4 a.m. until 6 p.m. and then played the game.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
The first person who told me a story like that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jimmy Vlahos.
Good to see you, bro.
I was trying to write exactly what you do because but you're an intellect.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Would you say so?
I mean,
political observant.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of iterations with my political stances over the years. Mm-hmm. So it's like my big thing that I learned when I was in college was this thing called steel manning.
Uh-huh.
So a straw man argument is one in which you build up a fake argument and then you attack that. So let's say that you and I were talking about abortion and I said, well, this is why you believe in murdering babies. It's like you obviously don't believe in that, right? But I can set that up and I can attack that as a fake person, right? Like a scarecrow.
That's what a straw man is.
That's what a straw man is. A steel man is the exact opposite, where you actually try to construct the best possible argument for the opposing opinion, and then you try to beat it.
Which seems to be the obvious method.
You would think, but there's a lot of people that I think are more interested in scoring political points or are far more interested in being right than they are in learning.
What is the cause of that? Is that, and let me just give you and I say I'm not trying to be Walter Cronkite here, but
you kind of look like him with the glasses on.
when I say what is causing that, I'm interested to the correlation between lack of identity and pursuit of a straw man, which is, you put maybe a fictional argument that they're chased after. I would be interested to know is there a correlation between people who maybe have found a lack of identity with themselves, whether it be for whatever reason they have been marginalized and socially? Do these new political outrages maybe give them a voice that they never have had before?
Maybe. I think it's actually the exact opposite of that. I think that there's too much identity.
Oh.
And so because we keep drawing these battle lines over increasingly smaller and smaller and smaller parts of our lives, whether it's our race, whether it's our gender, whether it's the school that we go to, whether it's the colleges that we support or the sports teams, humans are inherently tribal creatures. Anytime you give us a set of teams, we are going to pick them and fight. Okay, so there was a really interesting study that was done a couple of years ago where this was actually in the 50s, I think, where they took a bunch of boys, and of course it would be boys, and they took them to this camp, and they took them in 2 separate buses. And when they got on the buses, they deliberately said, you're the blue team and you're the green team. And they get on the buses, and on the way, this 2-hour drive to the summer camp, they're telling the kids in each bus, the blue team sucks. They're terrible. They were talking about your mom. They were doing all this stuff. And the boys were like, you know what? Yeah, screw the blue team. And so they separate them in 2 separate camps that are on 2 different hills so they can see each other, right? And they just put on the jerseys and they foment such a rage. They start hating each other just because one was given blue, one was given green, one was on one bus, one was on another bus. So it went to prove the fact that trivial, stupid little identities can cause massive social problems.
For sure.
So I don't think it's lack of identity. I think that we are constantly attributing to ourselves constant and ever-changing new identities. And then you have a different one from me. You have long hair. I have short hair. You're a hippie. I'm conservative. You should go get a job and I should probably chill out more. We do this all the time with everything, right? So I think that identities, and that's why the term identity politics comes from, is this idea that people are constantly trying to say, this is who I am. When in reality, just step back and have a conversation and actually learn instead of having all these, barriers in between each other. Put those aside. Let's not combat each other. Let's just talk.
For sure. So it's the problem isn't that we're different. The problem is that we're trying to fix the difference by force.
No, I think the problem is that we are constantly trying to say how different we are.
Right. We're spending more time focusing on how we're apart more than spending our time focusing on how we're alike.
That's exactly. There's in my estimation, a really pernicious ideology that's called critical race theory. And this was developed at the UCLA Law School primarily, although it's been other places like Harvard. They've had professors that taught this. And basically what it says is that racism is inherent, which I actually think is true because race is one of those obvious physical characteristics that are, when you see somebody, you immediately go, you're black and I'm white. You can't hide it, right? So it's an obvious point at which we are going to set up a difference. But I don't think that the pernicious side of racism is inherent in people. I think noticing the difference is inherent. But to say that because we are a different race, we are always going to fight because of our racial differences, I think is very wrong. Because, like, for example, I'm a mixed race dude, right? My mom and my dad my mom's almost 6 feet tall, skinny white lady. My dad is 5'6", stocky brown dude. He's Japanese, Greek, and Mexican. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So my mom never looked down at him, either figuratively or literally, right?
Yeah.
Because he was a different race. Although it was a very obvious that they were of different races, right? So obviously you could tell if you saw them that they were different races, but it didn't mean that there was racism because they were different races. And so the critical race theorists will say the racism is inherent. Whereas I would say noticing the difference is fine. That's called diversity. But attributing negative intentions to people that notice those differences is wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. And you can say this much more eloquently than me, but observing the difference is just an observation.
Correct.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, half the time that's where the humor comes in is, well, okay, so one of the things that I really, really enjoy is making fun of my Mexican girlfriend, now fiance. It's awesome because she's so Mexican that it's awesome. She's very, very different than me, even though she was born here. But she's got okay, I'll give you an example. It was crisp. It was like October of last year, and we were driving by a tamale cart, and she goes, "Oh my God, it smells like Christmas." I was like, what? And she goes, "Yeah, it's Christmas." And I was like, "That's a tamale. That's not." And she goes, "Yeah, it's what we eat at Christmas." And I was like, dude, what the hell? That's so foreign to me. Yes. I think of Christmas smells as like a, pine needles or stuff like that. But she's a California Mexican girl, so for her, it's tamales, right?
For sure.
So that's one of those funny things where it's just like, that's hilarious how you think that and I don't.
Right.
I don't have to say to her, you're a dumb Mexican because you smell tamales and I don't.
For sure.
You see what I'm saying?
So are there people out there that would say that was wrong of you to take note of that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, maybe not take note of it, but
not to take note, but to say what the fuck.
Yeah,
about it?
Right. I think the
which is a natural reaction for you.
And I think for most people, I think when you come across something that's foreign, your first instinct is to laugh, right? I see this with my kids all the time. We have these Hmong kids. Hmong is a Southeastern Asian a group of people. They're from Thailand and Laos, and they're like a subculture within those countries.
Okay.
And a lot of them are in Lompoc, and I taught English language development, so I had a lot of them in my class, right?
Make sure I know you want to lean over to talk.
Oh, my bad.
Me, but
yeah.
Make sure you're talking into the mic.
So anyway, so I have these kids, and they have obviously different sounding last names. And people will hear their name like Wang or something like that, and you laugh because it's not a last name that you normally hear.
Right.
And people find that offensive. And it may hurt the feelings of the kids at the time, right? And as a teacher, I'm obviously going to say, hey, we shouldn't laugh. But it just goes to show that laughter is your natural reaction to something that's foreign.
For sure.
And I think that that's actually a healthy thing because humor is the grease that helps people develop cross-culturally. If we can laugh at each other, then it's going to be okay.
For sure.
And so I think that to cultivating that initial spark of humor is actually a very, very good thing. It's one of the things that me and my fiance do. My parents did for sure. And it's something people like Dave Chappelle does it all the time in his stand-up.
Right.
You know, he'll make fun of white people and he'll make fun of black people. And then that's the thing that people find offensive. But it's actually the thing that it's the cohesive bond that allows societies to come together is if we're able to honestly dialogue, especially through humor.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you propose is something for a society that is very armor plated.
It is, well, and it didn't used to be.
Yeah. When did that happen?
I think the 60s. I really do think it was the 1960s when the explosion of identity politics really happened. And so I can get into a diatribe on this. Basically, Lyndon B. Johnson was president. He's the vice president of Kennedy. Kennedy got assassinated. He became president. And he had a war on poverty, also known as the Great Society. And he spoke at a HBCU, which is historically black college and university. I think it was Howard University in D.C., although I could be mistaken. And he was one of the first presidents to actually recognize the big racial problems that we have, which was a good thing. But that quickly degenerated into this sort of toxic form of identity politics, right? So I think on the white end of the racial spectrum, identity politics happen all the time. It's called the KKK. Their white identity was the most important thing to them, and look where that got us. Obviously bad consequences.
For sure.
Right? But I think now we're starting to see that recede, even though you wouldn't notice it from the media always covering these white supremacists everywhere. And what you're seeing instead is this reemergence of a toxic sort of diversity police. And so that's, as the white identity politics recedes and becomes unfashionable, you have this new sort of you must accept everything culture. And that I think is really dangerous.
I'm just going to ask questions.
No, go ahead, man.
Where do you see that going? Why do you use the word dangerous? What could this mean?
Okay, so
and I do want to take note of some things. Now YouTube is restricting videos. Maybe I can ask you this in a simpler question. Are we losing our freedom of speech? And when I say we, is all speech, are we free to say whatever we want?
So you mean your dad were talking downstairs briefly, and there's two ways that I think society can go off of the rails. One is through like kind of the 1984 by George Orwell. It was a book that we probably read in high school. And it was basically this dystopian sense of the future, which is the government's going to come take over. They're going to enforce all of these policies that make life very restrictive. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is the Aldous Huxley Brave New World, which is the individuals are going to be the ones that do it to themselves. We're going to police each other. YouTube is a private company. They don't have anything to do with our constitutional right to freedom of speech. If they on their private platform want to ban me as a private user, it's like a restaurant owner kicking out a person that's too drunk, right? They're allowed to do that. The question is, and this is something that's playing out right now in the legal landscape, is YouTube, or are YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, are those actually the new public square? Right? So since that's where everyone's talking, is that basically the same thing as us going into the park that's owned by the city and having a political rally? Right? Because even though they're private companies, this is actually where the public dialogue is happening.
Right.
So should we now consider that no longer a private space, but a public space? And if we do that, does the government now come in and regulate it? So that's a big, big legal question right now. Right? So this is so exciting to me because it actually pits conservatives against two of their favorite things. Private business on the one hand and freedom of speech on the other. We want to be able to say whatever we want to say wherever we want to say it. But what if it's a private company? Their private property, their private money. Are we allowed to infringe upon their capital in order for us to have true freedom of speech? Right? So this is where things are getting weird, right? Politically.
Things are getting weird.
Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, I think that we are policing ourselves far too much.
Right.
That I should not be afraid to say anything, because here's why freedom of speech is so important, particularly to a guy like me and specifically to a guy like you. I don't know about you, but I talk to learn.
Right.
Which is why my fiance, she's very quiet. She's sharp as a tack, though. She's amazingly smart, right? But she likes to listen. And Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan talk about this a lot too, which is you can listen to podcasts with professors at universities that you would have to have gotten into and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to. Now you can listen to them while you're doing the dishes.
Right.
Right? So there's this newfound time that we all have. And so we need to be able to risk offending people, because when you start talking, you start saying things, you are going to make mistakes and you're going to make dumb mistakes, right? But if you make that dumb mistake and you get slaughtered for it publicly, people are like, you racist, you sexist, you homophobe, you Islamophobe, you transphobe. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was just trying to figure out what I think, and I happen to say something that was stupid. If you get killed for it, well, you don't want to say anything, which means you don't learn, which means you don't grow, which means society kind of grinds to a halt. So I do think in that sense, we are losing something that's fundamentally important, which is the ability to make mistakes. As a teacher, I see this every day. If I killed a kid, you stupid asshole, every time he said something wrong in my class, I would be the worst teacher ever.
And what kind of wrong do you mean? Like what is wrong in your forum?
Well, so I'll give you an example. I've been really.
I'm turning this camera down just a little bit towards you.
All right, I'm moving. I'm a squirrely dude. I move around a lot.
No. I'm a photographer, and composition bothers me.
Gotcha. Let's take the abortion debate. Okay. It's my favorite debate of all time.
Okay.
Because I can steelman the hell out of both sides of it. I totally get both sides of this argument. But if you say we should protect life from the point of conception, right? From the point that sperm meets the egg, and I can make a good argument for why that's a good argument.
Okay.
Right? I can also make a good argument for why we should have abortion. But let's say I want to argue this side, the pro-life argument, right?
Okay.
You will instantly get slammed as a sexist, as a Handmaid's Tale, want to police women's bodies bigot. And it's
right
like, well,
away.
wait a minute. This is a national debate. I'm allowed to think and formulate my ideas. And
so that you put out the opportunity for you to be proven wrong.
Correct. Because if I don't, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. If I'm only able to spout one side of the political spectrum, then we have propaganda the way that the Soviet Union did, in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, which is only this is allowed to be said, and you have to keep saying it better and better and better and better, right? How much more can you worship a dictator? Well, there's no end to that. You can keep figuring out new ways of making this guy feel great, right? But if you shut down criticism, right, all that leads to is more and more and more tyranny. So we need to be able, like I was in college, I actually wrote in my school newspaper articles, and I still believe this, why I am 100% opposed to gay marriage. And it has nothing to do with gay people or with religion or anything. I don't like the government in marriage at all. I would actually say that we shouldn't be legally married to anybody, right? So the argument goes like this, and you can tell me if I'm a bigot or not, okay? Does the government regulate birthday parties? No. The government doesn't tell a Jewish kid that he can't have a bar mitzvah, right? The government doesn't tell you how you can spend your wedding anniversaries. So why the hell do we have to have a Supreme Court decision saying that gay people can get married? Weddings are just a glorified religious party.
Right.
No one. It was never against the law, ever in the United States, for a church to sanction a gay wedding. You could always have a gay wedding. The government just wouldn't recognize it. Okay? To which I say, how about we don't recognize any weddings? We all are under civil unions, under the law, and you can go get married however you want. Because weddings are basically an arbitrary thing.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, for example, the law now is two people, two consenting adults, no matter what their sex or gender is, are allowed to get married. Well, my question is, why two? Why not 4 or 12 or 1,000?
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to start getting the government involved in our private lives, why are we stopping at this arbitrary line of 2 people? Why can't we expand that to 1 billion? So my point would be, hey, get out of the marriage business altogether. We're all under private. We do that privately in a party or a church or however we want to do it. And we can just sign over our power of attorney or our wills or whoever the hell we want. But if I just said I'm opposed to gay marriage, people would slam me as a homophobe bigot.
Well, because I think that they would stop you at that. I think that
Correct.
you would be like, I'm opposed to gay marriage, and they'd be like, skirt.
Exactly.
What did you just say?
Right.
And I definitely have observed that we are not in a time of explaining yourself. We are definitely not we are definitely not in the age of explanation. No, you have to be very on your eggshells. And you know what? If I can speak honestly, is I'm sitting here listening, and this caliber of conversation has made me, this is my 43rd episode.
Oh, no way.
This has made me the most on edge I have been in 43 episodes. Just because I think the political climate of these conversations has almost conditioned somebody, when you go into this conversation, to take shelter, if that makes sense.
Unless you've been a part of the College Republicans Party at LMU, in which case you're used to getting hammered.
Is that you?
Yeah. I mean, if you're, I'm no longer a Republican. I detest Trump, but
I detest partisanship. I think that you can take. I just am more. Because I think what I have observed, and I told you in the beginning, all I do is ask questions.
Right.
When it comes to politics, I understand my strong suit is the ability to be like, why is that happening? Why is that happening? And asking the questions and taking a step back and observing. I'm a terrible Democrat. I'm a terrible Republican.
It's a good thing.
Because I can sit on the sidelines, be like, yeah, but did you hear what he just said about taxes? That's kind of a great idea. Yeah, but no, fuck that. We fucking hate.
Right.
And it's
that tribalism we talked about.
And it's the buses. It's the green team versus blue team.
Correct. Right.
I can't do. And I find it problematic, especially in 2019, I think. But maybe this goes back to your methodical idea of how we should be finding more differences to be alike. I think Team Republican v. Team Democrat
it's the worst.
Is almost the worst.
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, where I can sit on the sidelines and try to cherry pick what I appreciate. But there is one side that I've always seemed to gravitate towards.
That's natural.
And be more and that was more the side of common sense. Well, and I mean that. The if I could sell my political self, it would be an idea of common sense with the regard for human life.
That idea and those two words, common sense, have deep historical context in America. There was
Thomas Paine.
Thomas Paine, exactly right. I was just going to go there. Right. Thomas Paine he wrote Common Sense.
Right.
And I think, and one of I don't know if it's from that or not, actually. I really don't know where this came from, but common sense is not so common. Right. The idea that.
You're the teacher, bro.
I have no idea who said that. I like the saying, though, which is, it's not common. People will, they will obstruct and they will confuse things that we always took for granted, right? So, for example, just because I disagree with you doesn't mean you have to attribute to me the worst possible motives. So let's say again that you're gay. I'm not saying that you are, but let's say that you're a gay male, okay? And I told you what I just told you about gay marriage.
Right.
Right? You could immediately jump back at me and go, well, I'm just going to walk out of this room right now because you're clearly a homophobe. But
doesn't that surrender the chance for me to maybe see you, give you a side that you hadn't seen before?
That was where I was going, was that the problem is that people are no longer giving a leash to people. They're no longer saying, hey, wow, that sounded crazy, right? What do you mean? That second thing is what we're actually rewarding is impulsivity. We're rewarding people being impulsive with their emotions.
What do you mean? We're endorsing that in a time where people are after Instagram likes and fucking 5 second fame.
Yeah.
This is the microwave. I mean, I think that this turns back. I think the bigger picture here is instant everything, it seems like, because I usually am saying instant gratification through use of social media. Wow, that's a great idea. Like, share, blow up. Yeah, look how great I am.
Right.
But now it's almost, if ideas aren't delivered in a neat little package in a minute long YouTube video, they're almost disregarded.
Yeah, but I do think that this is something that Jordan Peterson talks a lot about, which is, so if you look at Netflix, people will binge watch shows on Netflix. That's not instant gratification.
No, fuck no.
We're talking, I'm a Stranger Things fanatic.
For sure.
I'm almost done with, so don't ruin anything. I'm almost done with season 3.
I haven't started it yet.
Okay, dog.
Is it great?
It's getting good. It's getting...
Is it as good as season 1 and 2?
It's different good.
Okay.
Season 1, I think, was the creepiest.
Yes.
It was. I couldn't watch it at night alone, bro.
Yeah. It was really creepy.
Yeah. It was super creepy. It was almost like Signs. Remember that movie Signs?
Yeah, I do. We were just talking about that the other day when it was it was that kind of scary. It wasn't like killer in the
I
hate
bathroom. Those kind of movies. The slasher films.
I'm just over it.
Right.
I was just thinking the other day, and you're gonna have to wrangle me in if I'm too scatterbrained because
dude, I love it, bro. I'm chasing you down. It's cool.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, if you'd be like, wait, hold on, we were talking about that. Bring it in.
Go ahead.
I was just laying in bed the other night thinking, because something me and my girlfriend really like to do together is we like to watch scary movies. And the last one I really saw that kind of that fucked you up. The second where you're like, wow, like this is disturbing, and not in disturbing like I'm going to be fucked up, where's my counselor at, but disturbing in that the disturbing where your brain has to take the second to do the long division to what exactly you're looking at. You know what I'm saying? Examples. Well, maybe the first one ever, The Exorcist, where she walks down the stairs. The reason it was so heavy for people is because I think you have the second where you're going, people don't walk down the stairs, and then you realize how unnatural it is, and that's what fucks you up. Another example, Signs.
Signs is my favorite movie of all time.
When the fucking alien walks by.
Oh my god, that scene, by the way.
Oh my god,
I got goosebumps right now, bro.
So do I.
It's terrifying.
And so do I.
It's so okay. That one or the one where it's on the roof.
Yes.
And you just see the silhouette.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
Jesus! I slept with a super. I was in Japan when I saw that, and I slept with a super soaker by my bed.
There you go.
100%, dog.
Yeah.
Like, these aliens are
in middle school.
Yeah.
So we were at. This was the first time a group of us had gotten together, and we actually saw this at my friend Jen's house. I just talked to her about it the other day, and it was the first time. And we're all like, oh, bro, you're a scary movie. Put it on.
Dude, it's terrifying. I don't care what anyone says.
When the alien walked by, I let out a yell.
Yeah.
That was unadulterated. It was an honest shout. It was an honest shout.
I think Joaquin Phoenix, his reaction when he's in the closet, he just kind of jumps back.
Yeah.
That was probably an honest reaction.
Do you remember well, no, he jumps back, but isn't there a scene where like almost his pupil is like, and it like, or is that a different? I
don't think so. I think
no. That was The Ring. When she sees the fucking video for the first time, and her pupils,
Christ, man, you're gonna have me. I'm having like flashbacks right now.
Her pupils are. There's the shot of her face, and her pupils are like.
Oh my god, like, dude! So I've got a horrible story about The Ring. I was living in Japan, and that was originally a Japanese.
Our stats over here. We're good.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry, I keep looking.
No,
over
it's okay. I just figured you were checking me out.
Yeah.
So The Ring is originally a Japanese movie, and the Japanese original was fucking terrifying.
Yes.
And I remember seeing it in theaters in Japan, and they had English subtitles, and
Scoot forward with the microphone just a little bit. You keep bouncing. No, towards me.
Oh.
Roll forward a little bit. There you go.
All right, here we go.
Keep bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, but that was just, The Ring was terrifying. But you know what's funny about the scene in Signs where the alien walks by? That was actually a woman.
Really?
In the alien suit, because they wanted those sort of long legs. I thought it was
a fucking alien.
Yeah, well, it definitely was that. I mean,
yes.
it was. But how the hell did we get on this? I was trying to track back the conversation.
We were talking about how it was
Stranger Things.
Yeah, we were talking about Stranger Things and how season 1 is closer to the
Signs creepy.
Signs, because it has it has like book like
right. Okay. Yeah.
Fiona
right,
Ryder putting the bulbs on
Correct.
the wall is like something that would be that you would read, and you would be putting
right.
that
And they said
in your
RUN, and it was like, you're like, oh my god, that scene when he told his mom to run was like that was like that creep factor.
Yeah.
The reason I brought up Stranger Things though was because people keep thinking that we were in this impulsive time, and we are. But it's interesting because People can sit down and basically read a novel with their eyes and their ears on Netflix.
Thank God for you. I was like, how the fuck do we?
Yeah, right. Right. So it's so strange that at the same time that we have this like instant gratification culture with all these likes and all these things, at the same time that we're listening to 3-hour podcasts, it's the same time that we're watching these long-winded Netflix specials, these Netflix shows, right? I can sit down and watch Stranger Things in a day, bro. If I didn't have like a little clock in my head that say, get up, you lazy fuck, right?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, I could do that all day long, right?
For sure.
But so our attention span is not actually short. So what the question is, what's causing this short circuiting to happen between people?
Well, do we have little patience for social interaction?
That's exactly the difference. I think patience is what we're lacking.
Why is that?
Virtue signaling. So virtue signaling is you get social points if you are the most protective of
most down for your cause
or other people's cause.
Okay.
So I love gay people. I'm so down, bro. Like anything you say against gay people, I'll fuck you up, right? And it's like, okay, I got you, dude. But you're basically, all you're doing is trying to show other people how good of a person you are. You're signaling to them that you're virtuous, right? And that gets amplified with social media. So people are like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's so progressive. He's so kind. Look how good this dude is, right? And so that is what we're rewarding, as opposed to, oh, this person's actually thinking. We'd rather just score points with people by saying, look how much I care about trans people. Look how much I care about black people. Whereas people like me who have these sort of bombastic opinions, well, guess where I spent my first 2 years of teaching? At an inner city high school in Florida, in between 3 housing projects, right? And I didn't see you out there grinding. So don't sit here and try to tell me that I'm a racist when I literally was in the weeds. I still am. I'm working at an impoverished part of the country right now. I mean, we had 5 shootings of kids in our school district. One girl was 17 years old. She went outside because she heard gunshots, was holding a baby, and got hit by a stray bullet and got killed when she had nothing to do with the gang violence. Right? This is less than a mile from my home. So people are out there actually doing the work. But my job and what I do for a living and the people that I love and the people that I work... What do you do for a living? I'm a teacher, a middle school teacher. I taught...
Public school?
Yeah, oh yeah. I would never do private.
Why?
I would never do upper class either. El Segundo's gonna have... you could put a textbook in front of kids at El Segundo and they'd be fine, most of them. Because they have parents at home, they have a home. They're not homeless. A lot of my kids are.
A lot of your kids are homeless?
Oh, my God. I'll tell you a story about that, actually. So I taught summer school. And Jesus. So this past year, I actually got moved. I was teaching English language development for migrant kids. So the area I'm from Lompoc. I live in Lompoc, which is about 40 minutes north of Santa Barbara and 40 minutes south of San Luis Obispo.
Thank you for coming down to do this.
Oh, dude, of course.
Stoked.
And no problem. It was my pleasure. So it's in wine country. It's known for its wine. So we have like Sanford wine is up there, Foley wine, Firestone, which is, the tire company.
Okay.
It's the first season of The Bachelor, the first Bachelor ever, was a Firestone air.
Oh, okay.
And they now have branched off. You know that 805 beer that you see?
Yeah.
Okay, that is Firestone Walker Brewery, which is 805 is the area code from where I live.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So there's wineries and breweries up and down. So it's a very good area for grapes. Now, because of that, there's lots of immigrant labor that are picking the grapes. Their kids go to my school. Okay, so it's a very poor part of Santa Barbara County.
Okay.
Which is ironic because right next to it is the Air Force Base that I lived at before Japan, which is where I lived before El Segundo. It's called Vandenberg Air Force Base, where Elon Musk shoots off all of his rockets. So SpaceX is headquartered here in Hawthorne, but they shoot off their rockets at Vandenberg and also at Cape Canaveral in Florida. Okay, so we have these.
They shot the one that broke the sky.
Oh, dude, did you? So I saw that outside of my house. I thought it was war. Terrifying.
I thought it was war.
It was terrifying.
The only reason I thought maybe it's not war is because of we're already south of Los Angeles and it was going more south. And I was like, well, they fucking missed us.
It looked like the sky was opening.
It was something that I'll never forget standing out in the street, and I was next to my mom, and I looked at my mom, and she kind of looked at me, and I was like, and I didn't know like what to. It was the first time in my life, and I think that we say like, "Oh, I'm speechless." Oh my God, you showed up to this drunk. I'm speechless.
Yeah, right.
But I really had no words because I was trying to unpack what exactly I was looking at, not physically, but what it figuratively meant. One,
right.
Was all this shit with Russia true?
Oh, like, wow, that went through your head.
Are we going to war?
That's interesting.
Are we going to war? Why is it going down south? Is that our rocket? And then, of course, it turns out good old Elon Musk is just,
I know, that wacko, right?
Sending fucking NASCARs up into fucking space or whatever he's doing. But
dude, so the shockwave from that broke windows, bro. Oh, wow. So that took off, and people were actually out there outside of my house, and they were trying to because the rocket, what SpaceX does is they'll shoot up rockets into orbit, and then they'll reuse the rockets.
They haven't come back down.
Exactly. And people, you can see them coming down from where I live. They fall. That's right next to my house.
So they fall
parachutes.
They fall. They're scheduled or designated to land. Back in Lompoc.
Lompoc. How dare you?
Lompoc. Whatever, dude.
Yeah. It's okay. Everyone does that. Yeah. It's like but
how dare you?
So that the shockwave from that made me crap my pants, dude. It was terrifying.
Yeah, dude.
But anyway, so I work up in this area, and it's a very, very poor part of California. And the thing is that there's this riverbed, this dry riverbed, the San Ynez River, that runs on the edge of our town. And I was teaching summer school. I had this little kid, third grader, and we were talking about pollution in summer school. And I showed the riverbed because they took out like 492 tons of trash out of this riverbed that's next to 492 tons of trash, right? And I'm showing this riverbed cleanup picture from our town, and he goes, "Hey, that's my dad's house." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's where we went camping." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, I lived there for 5 years." The first 5 years of this kid's life was spent living at a homeless shelter in a riverbed. And he's a white kid, too.
No. People are going to see this and not understand the caliber of homeless shelter. When you say shelter, you mean by definition.
It's a tent on a dry riverbed. It's
not some place with a lobby where somebody checks you in and keeps track of everybody with a clipboard.
No, and there's even like crazy stories of people ordering pizzas and having them be delivered down to the riverbed where they do their drugs and everything and they live. Like it's wild, man. And it's beautiful. That's the problem is like Lompoc is actually a really beautiful city, but it's got a lot of migrant farm workers and their kids, right? So most of my kids, a vast majority of my kids are Mexican, Guatemalan, and Salvadorian. And this past year, I taught severe special ed, so I had super violent handicapped kids, and that was gnarly.
Super violent?
Oh, dude, I had to go to the ER one. This dude hit me in the back of the neck, and I had a bone bruise on my vertebra. But he's a sweetheart kid, man. He really is a sweet now. But I mean, I was the first. By the way, because that field is dominated by women, so I was the first male teacher that most of these kids had. And they don't like that change. And they were going from elementary school to middle school. So he just was not having it. He was not having it. And so
look at you defend this child right now. After
what's that?
You're defending, it almost seems like you're defending
I
this
love
child.
this kid, dude. He became one of my top 5 favorite people on earth.
I think you're going to be one of my top 5 favorite people on this podcast. This is epic. Okay.
Yeah.
So he hits you in the back of the head with
his fist. Yeah.
He just hits you.
He hits me right here, and I see a flash, and I'm on the ground, and immediately I had to go get checked out. And it was tough work. So I feel pretty immune to any kind of criticism. When people try to say to me, like, you're a racist or you're a bigot, I'm like, all right, say it. I mean, come to my work, and why don't we trade places for a day? You know what I mean?
So I do this. Are you implying that people who would call you a racist aren't actually willing to do the work to make a difference in that community?
If they're doing work, it's not every day the way it is for me. If they're doing work, I promise you, they're not doing it from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. the way that I was this past year. I promise you. My fiance had to tell me, like, pull back, bro. Like you're doing too much. She had to tell me to like slow down. I went into therapy. I mean, it was gnarly. Because
you went into therapy because
because I just didn't have an off switch. I had this.
You didn't know how to not take your work home with you?
Yeah, dude. Because I mean, I only had 5 students, but was in a self-contained classroom this past year. And it was to the point where I was like, I am so bad at this because I've never done it before. The year before, I was teaching English language development. And my principal came up to me and he was like, hey, dude, we need some help in the special ed department. Can you do it? And I'm like, I mean, I guess.
You don't have to be qualified for anything to do that?
I got an emergency credential for it.
For sure. That's my buddy. He works with the special needs.
Right. So I got an emergency credential. What's up, dude? Good work, man. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Yeah, so he tapped me to do it. And I have 3 aides in there with me and 5 kids. And it was incredibly difficult, man. I mean, I have taught, like I said, in inner city schools. I've had some heartbreaking stories, man, from when I was in Jacksonville. That I quit teaching for 2 years. I couldn't do it because I just saw kids go through the worst sort of pain that I think you can possibly go through at 14 years old. And I quit. I worked at a bank and a solar panel company for 2 years. And then I was like, you know what? I really need to go back to teaching. I felt the call. So if anyone tries to question my bona fides, I'm just like, I'm totally immune to that because I know that and my fiance is a counselor. She's a therapist. So I wouldn't even consider dating someone that wasn't down for the cause. So I feel uniquely able to just say whatever the hell I think because no one can question my commitment.
Well, they can, but I'm not sure they're prepared for that conversation because it's got to come to an abrupt dead end when you're like, this is what I do Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
And the thing is like, my best man at my wedding next year is a black dude who he was a teacher with me. I did Teach for America, by the way. It's a nonprofit organization that takes top graduates out of university and sends them into the inner city for 2 years to teach.
You're epic.
And they help pay off your student loans, and they also waive your fees. I was going to go to law school. I was going to go to Georgetown. That's a funny story, actually. So I was going to go straight to law school out of LMU. And my dad pulled me aside, and he was like, listen, your brother served in the Marine Corps. Your mom and I both were in the Air Force, right? You're the only one that hasn't done any public service yet. I understand that you're the first one to graduate from college. We're super proud of you, but you should really consider doing some sort of public service. And I'm like, screw that, dude. I'm going to go to law school. I'm not trying to...
that was you guys.
Yeah, that was, I wanted to join the military, but I have asthma and they wouldn't let me. So I was like, well, if I can't do that, I'm just going to go make money. Yeah, there's the inhaler, right?
Yeah, well, I can get it to you.
I'm set. I took it right before
okay.
I'm golden.
Okay,
yeah.
for sure.
So I said, okay, Teach for America has like a 10% acceptance rate. So I'm going to apply and tell my dad that I applied and just knock it in, and then I'll go to Georgetown, right?
You got in.
I got in. I went to Jacksonville from LA, right? And it totally changed my life. It was one of those decisions that I made that completely altered the way that I was going to spend the rest of my life. I'm an educator from here on out. I'm getting my master's degree right now. And I mean, I got broken down to nothing in Jacksonville. It was the hardest work I'd ever done up to that point. The kids led such and this is the deep South, dude. So there's a bridge called the Hart Bridge in Jacksonville. On one side is white, on the other side it's black. And Jacksonville is right on the coast in the northeastern part of Florida. There are kids that were born and raised in Jacksonville that never touched their feet on the sand because you had to go through the white part of town to do it, right? So it's crazy segregated there still, right? And I was in one of the toughest high schools there, and the stories that I saw in the kids' lives that I participated in, it was just...
Made you quit for 2 years?
Quit for 2 years, man.
And get into solar panels.
I went into sales. I was like, I need to get as far away from teaching as possible. I couldn't... I feel guilty about it to this day.
You're fucking human, man.
Yeah, but it was like... I was very religious growing up. And there's a story in the Old Testament about Jonah and the whale.
Okay.
And Jonah was called by God to preach to the Ninevites, who were this like group of people that were terrorizing the Jews. And he goes, hell no, I'm not going to do that. So he ran as far away as he could to this place called Tarshish. God sent a whale. The whale ate him and puked him up where he was supposed to be. And I got the feeling during the second of the 2 years that I was out, I'm running away from what I should be doing. And I felt super guilty. And I was like, there's kids that need help.
Guilt was the whale.
Yeah, right. And so I immediately applied. I got into Lompoc, and the rest is history, man. Yeah.
Whew. And you're never going back?
No, I'm a teacher. If not a teacher, a principal, that kind of thing. And I'm only going to teach in lower income areas too.
What has teaching done? Oh, and you're only going to teach in low.
I would never
areas.
teach anywhere else.
What is teaching in this climate and in these environments? What has that done for your outlook on? What has that done for you between LMU to now? How has that changed you on a political spectrum? And I only
That's a really good question.
I only ask because you seem politically charged is a stupid way to say it, but you seem
informed.
Politically informed, but more advocated it as a whole. It seems like you're very. If it was a hobby, this would be one of your favorite hobbies. Because
it's embodied. It's real to me. It's not this. This isn't pie in the sky bullshit. When I see ICE raids, that means that my kids are getting picked up. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the immigration policies affect my community deeply. Right. My fiance's family.
How are you different than the cut of the mill Republican?
I'm not a Republican, for one.
I'm not. And had those views changed based on?
That's a good question. I think the biggest change for me came when I put my policies to the test. I think a lot of people, it is a hobby. It's almost like football. The Hillary and Trump debates really, the NFL ratings went down during the election because so many people were kind of getting their fill of competition and gamesmanship through the election and not through football, right? It became this game. It's never really been that for me. When I was a military brat, right? So I went to 4 different elementary schools in 2 different states, 2 different middle schools in 2 different countries, 2 different high schools in 2 different countries, and 3 different colleges in 2 different states.
Was that 11?
I went to a ton. I don't even know. It's been a bunch. Dude,
yeah.
Actually, I think it is. Great math, by the way. Nicely done. So things like my mom and my dad, when they had in 2011, when Obama and the Republicans couldn't agree on a budget, my mom got laid off because she worked for the Defense Department and she didn't have a paycheck for like 2 months, right? So defense policies, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, both my older brother and my dad were deployed to Afghanistan at the same time. I didn't sleep for a year, dude. So for me, it's
worried about your family.
Yeah, it's never been a spectator sport for me. I've always had blood in the game, skin in the game, right? It's always, when we were invading Iraq, I was living at an Air Force base in Japan called Yokota. And all the people, we all looked around each other like, well, our dads are getting deployed, And there's this sense of
what does that feel like?
Oh, dude, it's a dark feeling, man.
Is it not like a Toby Keith song starts playing in the background and you start flying the American flag?
I'm definitely that guy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely that I'm 100% proud to be American. 4th of July is my favorite holiday.
For sure.
And I think nationalism is incredibly important.
Dude, I'm going to have to bust out the book and write down my questions because I don't want to take you off track, but
I'll be here as long or as late as you need me to. You keep going.
You keep going. So what does that feel like to hear that?
It's hard for me not to get emotional recalling it because it's such a, there's a line, and I think it might be I forget what the song is. It's something. It's like a John Wayne and John Deere. It's a country song.
Okay.
And a line in the country song goes, "All the policies that you guys are making in Washington, we're the ones that are actually going and fighting."
Right.
Right. And so there's this idea that people will play political football. They'll actually have like, I'm a Republican and this is what I think, and I'm a Democrat and this is what I think. It's like, time out. This is affecting me, guys. So like, I don't take this lying down. It's real. My older brother, for example, whenever I hear about veterans and PTSD, he did 2 tours in Afghanistan as a Marine. All right.
Just heavy duty.
Heavy duty. My dad was a combat medic. My dad had
also heavy
stories.
duty.
He had a girl that he had to watch basically have diarrhea to death because he was a male and they wouldn't let him help a girl. So he saw like an 8-year-old girl basically crap herself to death.
Like
right?
dysentery?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I mean, he had another dude. He was in the El Segundo newspaper.
Do these stories attribute to your pride of being American? Do you hear these stories and you're like, oh, wow, like nobody gets dysentery over here?
I know. I never actually I never thought of it that way, which now that I think about it, it does. It always gave me pride to be an American because and military stuff, especially because that was my life. And the best people I've ever known were military people. They're my people.
Right.
That's what I know. And so when I moved to El Segundo, this was the biggest culture shock, even worse than when I moved to Japan. It was so gnarly, man, because people here, like you and Ryan knew each other for, forever. You know?
Actually, I pretty much did this Ryan's first day in middle school. Just sat with him and I was like, hey, man, who are you?
Dude, and Ryan was the first person I met, or second person. Mike McFadden was the first. And then Ryan was the second.
He's got a friendly face.
Well, it's funny because he had that.
He's approachable.
Did he ever tell you the story about how we met? So the first thing he used to have that long surfer hair.
Yeah.
And I walked into Miss Sveitch's English class and I was like, you need dreadlocks. And
he
was
said
like,
that to him?
The hell? I'm like, yeah, dude, you would look really good with like cornrows or like dreadlocks. And he was like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, listen, dude, if I raise the money, will you go off and get cornrows?
You said this is the first thing you said to him?
If you have any doubt, ask him and his mom.
I don't have any doubt. I'm more taken aback by the story.
This is the first thing that I ever said to him. And then we signed a contract and we taped it to the wall of Sveitch's class. And I raised money and he goes, well, okay, if I do that, you have to do something. So I wore a sari, like one of those like Indian, like female. Yeah, I wore one of those and he got cornrows for a day in 10th grade.
Oh my God.
And I went around asking people for money. I was like, hey.
He had cornrows.
Yeah, he did. It looked like a cancer patient.
Oh my God. Yeah, poor Ryan.
His scalp is so white.
Kind of a weird look on Ryan. Listen, what? Well, I guess I'll ask you this question first. Do people consider, from the outside looking in, do people consider the military the same people as the government?
No, that's a good question. It's a silly thing that Republicans do, which they all want to reduce the size of government, yet half of the budget for the government is the military, right? And so it's this weird dynamic where if you go to like the most conservative part of Texas or Mississippi,
which is the most conservative parts of the country,
probably, yeah, I would say so. And you go down there and you're like, "Are you Republican?" Fuck yeah, buddy. I love Republicans, right? Love me
Texans would even just say, fuck no, I'm Texan.
Exactly, right? And you say, should we reduce the size of the federal government? Fuck yeah, buddy, damn right. All right, let's start with the military. Fuck no, you don't touch that, right? So it's like, wait, what? And it's funny because my older brother, who was in the Marine Corps for 6 years, he'll be the first to tell you, yeah, we can cut a bunch out of the military. There's a lot of waste going on there.
Is there?
Oh my God, yeah.
I saw an interview. Who's the UFC fighter? Kennedy, Tim Kennedy.
Oh yeah, he was a Navy SEAL.
Tim Kennedy was saying that there is a shortage of people signing up for the military because kids can't put down the fucking jewel or the weed pen
fat
right now.
And shit.
Yeah,
too. Yeah. Well, that's a big problem. But I think the bigger problem, and there was a couple of years ago where they had to actually stop recruiting because they had too many people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, like in peacetime, that happens a lot.
Yeah,
there's expanding and contracting that always happens in the military. But I mean, anytime you have a massive organization, it doesn't matter if it's a business or if it's the government, there's always going to be waste. Yeah. There's always going to be people that are doing a job, 4 people doing the job that one person could do.
Right.
And you never forget Milton Friedman, who was the economist that won the Nobel Prize back in the 70s, 60s, or 70s. He was Reagan's economic advisor. He won the Nobel Prize in economics because he basically pointed out and proved that if tax money here's how tax money is done. Person A takes money from person B to give to person C, right? So I'm the government. I take money to you to pay for somebody else's stuff, essentially, okay? That inefficiency, instead of you just giving it directly to them, that creates this wall where if I take your money, it's not my money, so I don't really value it that much.
Yeah.
So I spend it in really stupid ways. Whereas if you just kept it and you just did what you wanted with it, you would spend it a lot better.
For sure.
Okay. So that happens. The military does that. The military gets their money from tax money, and so they don't always spend it smartly or rightly. It's still the government.
How do you fix that?
Well,
how do you make more meaningful spending in that regard?
You don't. I think that you cut off the amount of money the federal government is getting. Okay, so I'll give you a good example.
You cut the money going in that direction to person B.
Tax cuts is what I mean.
Tax cuts.
So this is going to be one of those things that you get. This is a very hot point of debate.
I'm
right?
just asking questions.
No, I get it. I'm letting you know that don't automatically agree with me on this. I would encourage you to research this.
This is a conversation.
I'm all about. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a tangent here, but it's an important one, I think. There's a big debate in education. Okay, so the problem with one of the biggest problems in education is the problems of geography. So in California, and this is for most of the country, schools are funded based upon property taxes. Okay, which is why El Segundo. So if you have like a 5% property tax, right, but your home is worth $1 million in El Segundo, that 5% is a lot of money. But if you go to Compton Centennial, 5% of a home in Compton is not as much because the property values there are lower, right?
Right.
Because the homes aren't as worth as much.
Everything's 5%. No matter what.
I'm just using that as a random number.
X. Everything is X%.
Correct. So if you get charged a certain amount of money for your property taxes, a certain percentage of that will go to the schools. Okay. The problem is that poor neighborhoods have lesser property values, right. And so the taxes are less, so there's less money for the schools.
Right.
Got it? So one of the ways that people propose to fix that is through a voucher program. So instead of the government collecting the money and giving it to the schools, you simply give that money straight to the parents and allow the parents to send their kids to whatever school they want, including private schools. But the problem with that is that people will often say, wait a minute, if we take government money, give it to a parent, and they send it to like a Catholic school, isn't that violation of church and state? The government is essentially paying private schools,
right,
which is against the law.
Right.
So this is a really good example. And my answer to that would be, who cares? It works better than a public school. So what do I care? Isn't the point of it is to have a better education? Why do I care if it's a public school or a private school?
Right.
The point of the tax money is to have a good, well-educated student.
Right.
Okay, this is one of those examples. If you give the money to the parent, they're going to choose to send their kid to the best possible school.
For sure.
But if you let the government decide, they're trapped at the school in which they are geographically destined to go to.
For sure.
So
with a cap on how much that school is being funded.
Right, exactly.
Based on the...
And there's some argument as to whether or not funding for... that California leads the nation in the amount of money per pupil, per student, but we're like 34th in overall academic achievement. So there's debate as to whether or not how much money per student actually matters, but even still, it matters a little bit.
So what would you say some of those variables? What are some of the variables keep making us 34th in the nation?
This gets dicey, but the immigrant population, I think, is a big one. Not that immigrants are bad, but just we have so many of them, and we have to have so many services to accommodate them,
like English speaking classes,
right? And there's just a lot of and immigration is a net benefit for sure, but it also strains an already strained public school system. So that's one thing that California has that a place like Iowa may not, right? So the immigration is a challenging.
So there's
aspect
variables that exist here that don't exist
in other places. But like Texas, for example, and Florida even. Florida's ranked way higher than, I think, like 12 or 13 spots higher than California, and they have a lot of the same problems, but they have full school choice, which means that if you are supposed to go to, William M. Raines High School in Jacksonville, Florida, the all-black school that I taught at, you can actually send your kid to any high school in the entire county. So it sets up almost like a marketplace where the schools are competing against each other to actually attract students. Right, and to me that makes a ton of sense. But other people think that.
So let's take this. So do you think that Centennial would have incentive to better their system of education?
Otherwise, they don't have students, and they don't have funding, and they don't have jobs. Essentially, right? So that's exactly right.
And and what if that school had to close down? Would that be a
businesses fail all the time?
Businesses fail all the time, and the money's being spent at somewhere more
correct,
at more productive places.
Right. Exactly. So the money doesn't
and that's
disappear.
Me off of my fucking Sim City logic.
No, I mean you essentially got to the heart of it, which is why the hell are we subsidizing failing schools? Now, another problem is people say, well, let's just pay the teachers more because that'll attract better teachers to come in. That'll better the schools internally. The problem is that sets up another really fucked up system of incentives. So
That's like that's like healthcare.
what do you mean?
Well, wasn't that an incentive for healthcare? No. In the opposite end is if we gave everybody healthcare, it would de-incentivize. That's a word. Doctors to be as skilled as they are.
Yes. Okay. That's exactly right. Right. That's a great point. It's a little bit different, but you're 100% right. What I was going to say was the incentive that it created for teachers. There was 2 high-profile instances in which teachers were actually helping their students cheat to raise the test scores so the teachers got more money. So the idea was let's pay teachers.
Isn't that a movie?
It might have been.
I thought there was a movie.
Maybe.
No. Keep going.
But yeah, so basically, if we pay teachers based upon their performance, right, that would incentivize teachers to perform better. The problem was it actually incentivized teachers to cheat.
Right.
And so it ended up being that, like in Atlanta, that was a big one. In DC, it was a big one.
But you... Yeah. Yeah, that's right, huh? Because you wouldn't be able to... How would you keep track of that?
Yeah, well, they had to do like a statistical analysis that showed that there was like erase marks and a certain percentage of kids got way higher scores from one year to the next. They tracked it down to the actual classrooms that they were in, and they proved statistically that it was impossible for a kid to gain that much in a year, that kind of thing. It was a big, big, big scandal.
Right.
So paying teachers more doesn't automatically make it so that you are going to have better teachers.
This sounds silly, but what about removing teachers and creating more competition in the market?
Removing teachers, what do you mean?
Like, and this is, again, I'm an idiot. My economics...
You're certainly not.
My economics lie in the realm of, like, seriously SimCity. So if we were to remove, maybe if there was a way to maybe document the teachers who are not being statistically effective,
I see. Right,
and
right.
remove and fire them, but not give that job anywhere else, and use that money to budget into teachers who are performing better.
Yeah, welcome to the Republican Party, by the way.
Well, no. I'm just. Would that create a more competitive workplace?
So you've brought up this is probably the most,
and that's a question.
No, yeah, and you,
the answer could be no.
The common sensing that you just said. I mean, that sounds like get rid of the bad teachers, essentially, right?
Right.
So the problem is that we have teachers unions, which represent a massive base of the Democratic Party. Okay.
I'm doing this.
No, go ahead. So teachers unions will protect teachers no matter if they're good teachers or bad teachers because they want more political capital, essentially. They want to have the more members that they have, the more powerful their organization is.
Right.
Okay.
The more powerful the union is.
Correct. And in turn, they will drive voters to the Democratic Party. And so Democratic candidates will often protect teachers, even bad teachers.
Whoa. Okay. So Democratic Party... Why? Can we rewind just like 10 seconds? That was like me fixing the camera because the doorbell ring. I need to rewind Netflix 15 seconds. What? So
okay, so a union is basically a group of workers that get together and they advocate for higher pay, better wages, etc. But whenever you have a group of people coming together, that also represents a big block of voters. Okay. So
because their ideas are aligned?
Yeah, they all have the same basic interests, right? If the school gets shut down, I'm no longer a teacher, I don't have a job.
Okay.
So we all have a similar set of interests, right? Just like plumbers have a similar set of interests.
And that union is more than just something like an agreement? It's
like
you
sign a contract.
Dude. It's like a contract.
That's a great question, actually. So there's what they call right-to-work states. What a right-to-work state is, okay, so California is not a right-to-work state. If your job has a union, you are compelled to join that union. You have to, which means you have to pay money to that union every paycheck. I pay like $90, okay? In other states like Florida, you don't have to, but you can opt out, which means you're not protected by the union.
Which
right?
means what? What does that mean that you're not in union?
Means
you're
not
paying.
Be
like, guess what, Jimmy? You're fucking fired, man. Peace out. But can't that happen anywhere?
It can, but it means you don't have lawyers, right? The union will provide. They have a lawyer on retainer. So if any
but
sort
why
of...
aren't you treated like any other employee anywhere?
Because the union there's an entire department of the government called the Department of Labor, which they actually just have a new secretary. Antonin Scalia's son, Eugene, is the new Secretary of Labor. But their entire job is to protect workers. So that way workers don't get fired for missing a day of work because their child was sick. You know, the union will protect workers' vacation time. They'll protect workers' health care, that kind of thing. They protect workers from getting fired. So anytime you're going into... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got questions.
Yeah.
Why isn't... And I should probably do a better job of just letting you explain, but I hear things and then I have to stop it.
No, go ahead.
Why isn't every job under the same parameters of the agreement of a union?
Because the people don't necessarily want to be in unions, like me.
Like, you don't want to be in a union, and you can't opt out.
Well,
but what does that mean? Like, you don't want fucking job protection? Like,
it
why
means
not?
that I don't want my money going to a union that is politically active in a way that I don't agree with. Right. So which makes sense. Right. It also means that I don't want to spend $90 because I'm a good teacher. I'm not going to get fired. So why the hell am I spending money?
That's exactly it. So why wouldn't everybody be just accountable for their work quality?
You're preaching to the choir, dude.
Well, I just I'm not trying to align myself up here. I'm just trying.
You're telling me what I believe, basically.
But why wouldn't that be that if I had a job interview and I showed up drunk or whatever? No, that's bad. That's worse.
No. There's teachers that show up drunk to their job. They don't get fired because of the union.
Okay, but what if you're trying to tell me human beings are just human beings, animals, just developed fucking animals, and doesn't the idea of a unionship, for I don't know the word, doesn't the idea of a union, maybe aren't we at risk of complacency?
Yes. The entire point of getting on the union topic was you asked, why don't we just fire bad teachers?
Oh yeah.
The answer is because unions protect them.
But okay, that's tricky, man. That's tricky.
Is.
How severe is the issue where people are being fired to the point where this is an outrage? We need unions.
Dude, that's such a good question. In teaching, almost negligible. It's almost not even there, right? And in certain jobs, like my little brother works in the lighting union, so he actually just did Lion King. He's in the credits for Lion King. Yeah, he's in the movie lighting union.
Yeah, it's cinema. It's huge.
It's huge, man.
It's huge.
And there's actually
what is that to protect?
It's to protect workers from getting arbitrarily fired or losing their healthcare coverage. And there's certain industries that they absolutely need unions, like coal miners.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
They will go into these coal mines. It used to be there was these towns, like coal mining towns.
Right.
The currency was little tokens that were made by the company. And they would pay you in these tokens, which you had to use at the company store to buy your food and your clothes.
Oh, it's like
so
jail.
The government just took your money. The company just took your money back, right? And it used to be that they didn't have time limits. They can go in the mines for as long as the company told you. Otherwise, you were fired.
But why can't we just say, no, that's fucking illegal,
right?
And this doesn't go for coal miners. This goes for librarian too. Nobody's working more than these many hours.
Right. Well, someone has to work to organize people to vote for that, and that's what unions traditionally did. So the Labor Day, we always hear about the holiday Labor Day. So it's to celebrate workers that fought for workers' rights.
Right.
Yeah.
Which to this day. Are unions still, and I'm sure I have a lot of friends in the film industry who are like, yeah man, like, but why? I guess I'm just missing the idea. Maybe this is a conversation for somebody in the film, but I'm missing why just the parameters expected under union law couldn't just be
expanded to everybody.
Expanded to absolutely everybody.
Because it's a great question. Hourly workers have different parameters than a freelance worker, which has a different parameter than a public school teacher, which has different parameters than a lawyer.
For sure.
Right. So and there's certain, like my little brother, when he was first getting started in the lighting business, he would work for these little tiny companies that would say, yeah, I'll pay you. And they go out of business and he never got a paycheck. And so you had to have the union lawyers to go chase them down in court and say, as part of your bankruptcy filing, you have to pay the person that you just...
Right.
Yeah.
But what if your brother was educated like, hey, man, if you go into this without a contract, it's on you.
Well,
and as a fact, it goes for all of you.
Right, but the question is, how do you need a lawyer or somebody to advocate for you in court? You're not a lawyer. How do you go about the process of, let's say you need to file a claim?
What if that's something we put in school systems? What do you mean? What if we put that in public education?
You could, but I mean, typically
like
speaking, you don't. If you have a full-time job, you don't have time to take a couple of days a week out of your time to go to the courthouse to fight a company, right? So this is what the unions traditionally do. So unions have a place. Like I always say, the further away from the coal mine you
Playing
go.
devil's advocate, y'all.
No.
If you're part of a union, it's
these. And my brother is. There are certain industries in which unions are vital, right? Coal mining, Hollywood. They rape their employees in Hollywood. So these Hollywood unions, the Screen Actors Guild and those kind of things, a lot of them do really good work. Teachers shouldn't have unions. And in fact, there was a Supreme Court decision recently in the last couple of years called Janus, Janus, which basically says, I'll set up the two sides and I want to see where you fall. Okay?
Me, personally.
You personally.
Okay.
Okay, so unions will actually advocate for better wages, for better health care, for more vacation times, for sick leave, for maternity leave, paternity leave, that kind of thing, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're in the union or not, you will benefit from what the unions will fight for. So the unions will say, for example, public school teachers need to get 2 weeks paid vacation every year. Let's just say, okay? So if I'm in Florida, which is not a right to work state, it is a right to work state rather, which means I don't have to be part of the union. Even if the union fights for my rights, I benefit even though I'm not part of the union. So the union said, well, wait a minute, shouldn't they be forced to pay union dues? Because when we go to the state house and we fight for these rights, all these teachers who are not in the union are still benefiting. So shouldn't they be forced to pay union dues? On the other side, they say, listen, my money and how I spend my money is basically a form of speech. If I give my money to charity, that's me basically speaking and saying, this is what I value. This is what I believe in. If I donate money to a church, this is my religious belief. I'm allowed to donate money wherever I choose. You cannot, as the government, compel me to join an organization that I don't believe in.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it's basically like the argument, and there's a Supreme Court decision back in the 50s where the Jehovah's Witnesses said, you cannot force us to say the Pledge of Allegiance. You can tell us there's certain things we're not allowed to say. You can say you're not allowed to yell fire in a theater, right? When there's not a fire. Right? There's certain things you're allowed not to say, but you can't force me to say things, just like you can't force me to join this union.
For sure.
So there's these two sides. The union is saying that they're benefiting from our work, even though they're not contributing. And this side is saying you can't force me to be part of an organization that I don't believe in.
I think that you should, and what stuck to me, trying to keep track of all that, is opt out.
Yeah, so that's what I believe too.
I think that if you opt out, you are in contract that, hey, you know what? Appreciate it.
Right.
I'm going to just figure this out myself. But that also means I am at risk. Well, I am responsible for all my own benefits.
I'm with you.
And that will be handled on a personal level between me and employer through contract. And it's like, yeah, well, you're going to have to write a contract. It's yeah, well, I'm going to have to fucking write a contract.
Yeah, it's what LegalZoom is for.
And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. Pay the membership.
Yeah.
And I think that there could be both.
I happen to agree with you. I think half
opt-out program.
Half the states have the right to work label, which means you can opt out. So the Supreme Court actually cited.
Oh, so that exists.
That exists in half the states, but now the Supreme Court, under the Janus ruling, the Supreme Court said actually every state is now a right to work state. So you're allowed to opt out.
Everybody can opt out.
Correct. So now the question you asked about why aren't bad teachers getting fired?
What happens when the teachers under union are underperformed compared to the teachers who opt out?
They get protected, and it pisses me off. It makes me look bad because these bullshit teachers.
But what happens when somebody sees the numbers and they're like, "Wait, whoa.
Doesn't matter.
Why is 90% of the teachers who opt out performing better than 90% of the teachers in union?"
I don't necessarily know if that's the case, I'm
speaking in extremity.
You raise this is like one of the things that makes me the most upset is there's this thing in California where after 2 years of a teacher working full time, they're granted tenure, which means they have to basically commit a felony in order to get fired. Okay?
Okay.
So tenure exists for like college professors. And the reason it exists for college professors is because they shouldn't get fired for saying outrageous things, because that's their job, is to think of new things, right? So colleges can't just up and fire a political science professor because he doesn't believe in gay marriage, for example, right?
Okay.
So that's what tenure is supposed to be for. But a middle school teacher doesn't fucking need tenure, right?
For sure.
But they'll give it to them because they don't want them to get fired, right? The unions will protect teachers for not getting fired. So what ends up happening is one of two things. One, after every 6 months you get evaluated as a teacher in California, 3 to 6 months, depending on.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. The problem is that because schools know that after 2 years, we're stuck with this motherfucker forever, they will look for any little thing to fire you in the first 2, because they don't want to get stuck with a bad teacher, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people, like my school had a 50% turnover rate from 1 year to the next. Half of the teachers were gone. So we have this high turnover rate because we're terrified of getting stuck with a terrible teacher and having to pay them for the next 25 years.
But that's a...
It's a good thing, but again, these are the incentives that you set up.
If tenure didn't exist...
It wouldn't be a problem.
It wouldn't be a problem.
Well, I mean,
that's the show. What would you say the same way you can get too old to drive a car?
Yeah.
And I say this with all due respect.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Do you see where this is going?
Yeah, I mean, if you're too old to drive, you've proven that you're a liability, so you should be removed from the road.
And
yeah, teachers should be treated the same way.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Well, what if there was no tenure, but we did yearly evaluations?
Well, they do that. Yeah. What I really like, I don't know if California does this. I've actually never looked into it. Florida publishes them. So if you go and you actually look up Kenneth Vlahos, my legal name, you look up.
I would have put your.
Dude, I go by Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look up Kenneth Vlahos, you can actually see how I performed, my ranking, the test scores that I had, all that stuff. So that's a public thing. So parents will look that up and go, oh, you're a terrible teacher. I'm not sending my kid to your classroom. They'll opt to send me to a different school.
And through systematic process, if people aren't sending their kids to you, you're out of job.
Yeah, your school can get shut down. So if you have a collection of these terrible teachers at a school.
What happens if you're paid commission by student?
Well, we already talked about how that could be problematic, because then I will just cheat. I mean, not that I would personally, but it all goes to show that there's no easy solution to these big problems.
Right. You don't think that there wouldn't be enough blood in the if you got caught cheating, or if you were just cheating, I feel like, and that's why I think that I'm trying to figure out how to put this into imagery for you, but it's like having a 2 hour long conversation. Eventually, I mean, you could get all your students to cheat, but
you'll get figured out.
A year of school and nobody's going to be like, wait, like connect the dots.
Maybe, but the point that I'm making is that there's no simple solution to these complex problems.
Right. I think the opt-out program is a good move.
I think it's a good move too. And I think one of the biggest things that we could do to protect students, specifically from bad teachers, is publishing the teachers' test scores. I don't necessarily think that you should tie their pay to it, because there's just too many problems with that. But public shame means a lot. If people know they're going to be put on blast, right? If I know, for example, that my students' test scores, aggregated, not individual. Obviously, I don't want to embarrass any of my kids. If they said all the teachers that had Mr. Vlahos went down 4 points this year in math, went down 4 points in English, whatever it is.
Like
right?
stats.
Yeah.
For the NFL.
And then you can track that for the last 10 years. I don't want that out there. I'm going to do anything I can to not get embarrassed. Right?
So you'll teach better.
Exactly. Right. So I think that's one of the best solutions. That doesn't affect pay. That data already exists. All you have to do is publish it.
And there's nothing wrong with publishing that, because do you think that publishing somebody's, I'm going to call them test scores, carries the same gravity as affecting somebody impersonable, like a student, or impressionable? Does that carry that same gravity?
That's a great question. So this is another debate amongst teachers. They'll say, listen, the test scores may not be that great, but I definitely help these kids. I mean, I like my students, for example, are severely handicapped. So measuring test scores is a little bit of a dicey proposition there.
Right.
Right. So what can how do I prove that I was a good teacher?
Yeah.
It gets complicated, right?
It would get real complicated. It would have to almost be a sit down with absolutely every student and some detective work.
Right. And that's exactly right. So this is where things get complicated. I tell you all of this to the larger point that I think I like to make to people is when you choose these political teams, you don't get to have that inner dialogue that's necessary. You'll have like, here's a great idea, let's do that. And the other side goes, I can find 15 things that's wrong with that. I can tell you that before you implement it. Don't do that, right? So the reason why free speech is so damn important is because we need to dialogue in order to cover each other's blind spots, right? If teachers just run amok, we're stuck with terrible teachers. There was a teacher in California a couple of years ago who was tying kids up and raping them in the closet.
Whoa.
And the unions fought to protect him to get his tenure while he was in prison.
Why is that?
Because they're a union, and that's their job. Okay? I know that sounds simplistic, but it's true.
But what would that benefit the union?
It's more of a legal thing. It's like even the worst criminals are entitled to have attorneys, right?
Okay.
So even people that are pedophiles are entitled to their union rights.
Is the union's mission statement the union of labor or the union of teachers?
Oh, so this is a fantastic. You bring up something that really gets me excited. There was a union boss, a head of one of the teachers unions. I think it was the NEA, the National Education Association, and he goes, I'm a union boss. Right? Which means that my clients are teachers, not students. Right?
Right.
So his job is to protect teachers' jobs, not students' lives.
Yeah, not the future of students.
Right? So again, the idea of a
But
union...
that sounds like a bad guy for the job.
No, it sounds like a great guy for the job because his job is, he's dialed into what his job is. His job isn't to worry about students. His job is to worry about teachers.
But shouldn't it be?
No, he's a union boss. A teacher's job is to worry about kids. But it just goes to show you the perverse nature of what unions could become if they're let to do whatever they want.
So what I'm asking is by nature, just unions are about job protection and talking about the severity of a child's future and the union in the same conversation are two different ladders.
That's exactly right. And he said this is, and so the problem is though, is that if you're someone that likes unions and wants teachers to be paid more, you clap for that line. You go, absolutely, teachers need to be treated with more respect, need to have more money. But if you're a parent,
by
and
the
you
way,
hear that, you're
which
like,
I agree. I think that I think teaching is an important, severe, and super hard job.
Yeah.
And I think if you're competent,
mm-hmm.
I think that you should have every right to I think that you should be protected.
Right. Yeah, sure.
I think that you should be protected and offered all the benefits of being someone with the responsibility of teaching.
But I want the reason why I'm getting paid my money to be because I'm a damn good teacher, not because some union guy said that I should.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So I want to play a fun game with you, actually.
Okay.
I know you have a lot of questions in your book. So one of the things that I was really looking forward to, I actually had a dream last night of us having a conversation because I've been stoked about this for a minute.
Oh, good.
Okay. So I've been reading about a bunch of different stuff. I think you and I got into the reason why I came on was because I was talking about Israel. Is that what it was? Or do you remember what the conversation was that got me on here?
Dude, it was a million. You actually had approached me and you were like, yo, Joe Rogan thing. And then I
thought it was so cool, dude.
I just saw it today. What was it? You had, I think that I forget. I think I wrote something on I think I was playing devil's advocate, the abortion laws in Louisiana.
Oh, there you go.
Just
Right. Okay. So my game is this: pick a topic that you think that you like,
it doesn't
any
exist.
hot button topic. And just, we'll go back and forth. We'll pick a side. You choose one side, I'll pick the other.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll try to go back and forth on it.
All right, well, why don't you pick a side? Or why don't you pick a topic? Because I don't know.
Let's do abortion. Abortion's good, since we that was the one that we got into in the beginning. Yeah, so do you want pro-life or pro-choice?
Fuck.
Do pro-choice. I'll do pro-life.
Okay.
I think it's harder.
Okay, I'll do pro-choice.
All right, so give me the best possible argument for why we should legalize abortion.
Why we
should keep it legal, rather, I should say.
Why we should keep it legal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not your right to you being you over there
mm-hmm.
don't have a right to tell me what's going on in here.
Okay.
at what point is this to keep it legal?
Yeah, so like, why is it an important thing that we should fight to protect? Right.
This game's got me a little nervous.
I'm sorry. I don't mean for that to be the case.
Yeah. A group of male representatives made the decision what a group of females should be doing with their body.
Right. That's a good point. Can I add one to your side real quick?
Yeah, please, dude.
So there was a book.
I'm not going to be as efficient at this as you want me to be.
So there was did you ever read Freakonomics?
No.
Okay, so there was a book that was, and this is one of the more sinister ones. I like this one a lot.
Okay.
So there was a University of Chicago economics professor.
Right.
And he wrote a book called Freakonomics, and it was applying economic principles to different areas where economics aren't usually in place. Okay. And he said, okay,
like
so
where?
Abortion.
Oh, okay.
Right. Usually economics is having to do with
like not
monetary
not
policy.
Physical locations.
Oh no.
Okay.
It's like applying it to
you said
fields.
Places. You said places, and I thought like
places meaning like fields.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah. So he goes, the Roe versus Wade abortion opinion in the Supreme Court.
Can you scoot up? You're seriously slinging out of the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Scoot forward.
Okay. Oh, am I out of the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm keeping I'm like, dude, my mic's right here.
Okay. Perfect.
So he actually said, okay, so I think it was 1972 that Roe versus Wade became the law, where basically abortions were a constitutional right, okay, under the 14th Amendment's due process clause, okay? So
good shoot, Jimmy.
Right? That's why I didn't get laid much in high school. Too busy reading Supreme Court decisions. Getting
laid now.
You know it, son. So anyway, he said, okay, what the prime ages for crime are for men, especially between the ages of 18 and 25. Okay, that's usually where most of the crime happens. Is
Statistically
speaking, men between the ages of 18 and 25.
Okay.
He said, okay, well, most of the people that commit crime are kids that were raised in single mother households, right? There's no dad there, one person working, which means they're working when the kid gets home, the kid's unsupervised, then they get into crime.
No, this is conjecture. This is all
fact. Correct. Okay. So he goes, well, who are the people that are having abortions? People who would be single moms. So what happened to the crime rate 18 to 25 years after Roe versus Wade? It went down because all of the kids who would have otherwise been 18 and 25 with a single mom were aborted. They weren't even there. So the crime rate went down.
So this is statistical evidence
that abortion actually helps reduce crime rates.
Wow.
Good argument, right?
Very good argument.
All right. So I can do this all day. I can argue pro-choice all day long because there's a good argument for it. This is what I love about the abortion debate is good people can disagree about
I think this is what you love about debate, period.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, I'm so tired of people throwing around these stupid labels like homophobe or sexist. It's like, what if the other person has got a really good point?
I think that's what's so important about this podcast. If you don't mind me saying something selfish for a second, I think no, not at all. I think that I was just talking to my buddy Dan, who showed up here today. I think that this is something that I've always wanted. You know, I recognize that there is a lot of firewall these days, and whether it be from whatever side you wanted, my idea of this was always to be a free domain where you could be whoever you needed to be, dude. And I could be. And again, and I told you before we started, I'm just going to observe and ask questions, and you could be whoever you want to be. And that's why I'm so excited to see you fired up. And maybe this is where our ideas coexist. Is I am hoping that as this podcast progresses and it evolves into whatever it was, it'll always be a platform for people to just have to not only talk, right, but to engage in conversation.
Yes.
You know, which is
without an audience.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. That's why those political debates always suck, is because they're just saying lines that they're going to get applause.
Right.
They're not trying to talk to the other person the way this is.
Right.
They're just trying to get that one liner in the audience because and it's just like, that's so fake, man.
And my objective sitting here listening to you, and I think that this is something maybe I could just speak on my experience from sitting here. You know, what was it like talking to Jimmy? Someone who I think is much more neatly packaged in their ideas. It's important to just listen. You know, it's important that this conversation exists, because I think that it's okay to just listen. I think a lot of people, I think that a lot of people feel the need where they need to have a voice in this time where it seems like every single person has a voice. Right. It's okay to be developing your voice. You know, you do not need your political opinion and your political view can be a work in progress. It does not need to be which side of the fence I'm standing on.
And we punish that with politicians. We go, you're a flip-flopper.
Yes.
Maybe I just changed my fucking mind.
Dude, and you know what? That's one of my, and I think that's, if I could take anything from one of my favorite mentors, Joe Rogan, in the podcast world, is his ability to be like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. You know? And that ability to be like, yeah. Wait, what'd you just say?
You're right.
Is crucial, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that these ideas and these teams are all just agreements, and we're all just a bunch of fucking people, and you're either standing on that side of the room and you're standing on this side of the room. And as soon as we accept I think that soon, maybe a lot of these people who bring the arguments to the table, maybe they feel like these people are not able to get changed, and that's why maybe it immediately is escalated to a minute-long speech about how you're a bigot, you'll never change, you'll this and that. Maybe we're not doing a good enough job.
Yeah, I think the big issue there is that people are not, and we're not teaching people to do this.
Right.
They will take an attack on your idea as an attack on them.
Right.
So your ideas are these, extra human things. They're in our brains. They're thoughts. They're talked about, they're written about, but they're not me. I'm not an idea.
Yeah, they're like balloons that we decide to tie a string to. We're just holding the string.
So I can say, Andrew, that's a stupid idea, and not say that you're stupid.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Right.
You can be the smartest person in the world and have a freaking stupid idea.
Right.
Right? I mean, I have one of my best friends, a guy named Sebastian. He majored in math at Columbia, right?
Right.
Ivy League educated. I always call him the dumbest smart guy that I know. Because, I mean, he'll like put his shoes on the wrong feet or that kind of thing, right? So it's like,
he's a klutz.
You can be brilliant and have stupid ideas. There's nothing wrong with saying that.
But I think that people become so emotionally invested in what their ideas are.
Yeah, right.
And that's what's, and I don't want to say that's the problem of identity politics. Well, you recognize it as a problem. I'm, again, observing that is the phenomenon of identity politics, is when you challenge somebody's views, they go, wait a second, like, I'm the anti-fascist. Like, what do you mean? If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, then I don't make sense.
Yes,
figuratively speaking. And I can't let you fucking say that about me, because this is everything. So maybe we need to, and this is just me thinking out loud, in hopes that we can understand that these politics exist, maybe we can keep, as we do a better job of understanding what makes us more alike than makes us different, maybe that we understand that we just learn to keep them at an arm's distance, maybe, if that makes sense.
I teach this in my classroom whenever I'm going over critical thinking, is I force kids to hold opinions and defend opinions that they don't necessarily believe. I take a poll in the beginning of the year. I list a bunch of things and I say, how do you feel about this, this, and this? And then throughout the year, I force them to defend the other side, just to say, listen, I mean, and what's funny is a lot of them will like that, they'll become that, which is, I think it was Solzhenitsyn, a Russian author, said that people don't have ideas have people. Okay.
I like that.
Yeah. Right. Because you can read something and go, yep, that's it. Right. That idea smacks you in the face.
And you know what? I think it's important for me as somebody who, I don't want to say has this platform, but is sharing this platform with people a couple nights a week. I need to be honest that, dude, I have tendencies where the first educated response to a topic I see, I go, gotcha. Yeah. Oh, I get this.
That's natural. I think I do that too.
And it happens, and you kind of incidentally see yourself on, you're like, oh yeah. And it's by whatever information quickest accessible to you. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
If I read it quick, because I don't have any reserved views of a political observant, I have to kind of call myself on my bullshit every once in a while. I'll be like, wait, Drew, what are you doing?
Right.
You picked up this fucking article. You don't know anything about the topic. Don't go hit the parade.
That is the mark of an educated person. Just so you know. I think that, and you and I had this kind of a rekindling a couple of years ago in Ryan's garage.
Yeah, that's right.
And one of the things that I felt so guilty about, I think it was right when I was beginning to be a teacher. And one of the things that I realized was I have been to college and I've been in these organizations with like super smart people who were possessed by ideas. They were ideologues. And then I talked to someone like you who just listens and he will call himself out on his own bullshit, right? And he'll say, man, that was dumb. I made mistakes there. I hurt that person.
For sure.
There are people that make a living about not doing that. They would rather peddle a certain identity, a certain idea, instead of checking themselves. And anytime you try to do that to them, they'll immediately label you as whatever. They'll throw up that smokescreen and say, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a bigot. But guys like you, I think, are actually more educated. So there's a...
Well, I appreciate... Well, I don't know if that... I'm going to take that as an observation. I don't think it's... I don't think and I'm reserving the right to take that as a compliment.
You should.
I think that at somewhere along the line, people are more afraid of being accepted by this person than they are themselves. The reason why I wanted to call myself out on bullshit is because I'm the motherfucker who's got to lay with me at night saying, oh my God, I did what?
Right.
You know, I gotta make this right.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem to be on people's minds anymore.
But if you're part of a protected class, if you're a black lesbian midget, right? And the entire world is saying you're physically disabled, you're black, you're a woman, and you're gay. The entire world is out to get you, right? If that's the case, you can look at all the mistakes that you've made and say, well, are those really my fault? Or are all those bad decisions functions of sexism, functions of racism, functions of homophobia? Are all the bad things that are happening to me even my fault? Or is it just all these negative things that are impacting me?
Right. So it's like you're almost your environment is...
It takes away from your own ability to criticize yourself because you can easily blame a lot of your problems on other people. That's one of the biggest problems I have with identity politics is... Why are you not making as much money? I'm a woman, so therefore it's probably the gender pay gap. It's like, maybe you just suck at your job.
Right.
Well, why did you get fired from your job? My boss was a sexist, or my boss is a racist, or did you just take too many sick days? Right? So the problem is that when you give people outs, they'll take them. And anything that they can do to hide from that critical eye, they will. But
a critical eye being that introspective moment where you say, did I take too many sick days this year?
Right.
Why is that?
Well, I think
is pride a human condition?
Oh, it's part of it. And I think that, I know for me, I have been a real asshole. And the reason I've been a real asshole is because I'm a real asshole to myself. It's one of the things I talk about to my therapist all the time, is I have, my dad has them too. He calls them the I hate me's. Where like, I will be in the shower. I'm just like, you fucking idiot, right? And I'll just beat myself up. Just
self-deprecation.
Yeah. And it's
whatever.
like, and then I go, well, at least I'm not dumb as that guy. And then I'll find somebody and just fucking rip them, right?
Really?
I was super judgmental in high school. Yeah, I mean, that's where that came from, was I was completely unwilling to live with myself. And so the only protection that I had against that was finding people that were worse than me and finding ways in which people were worse than me. I wrote you off like in high school before.
You were a bully. You were a mental bully.
Right. And I couldn't. And once I started
Not that you were a bully in that I've had an incident where I'm like, wow, this motherfucker's stuffing people in lockers, but that is the thought process of a bully.
And it wasn't that my dad was beating me up. It was me doing it to myself, which was even worse. And so then this all came to a head for me when I was in Florida. And I was like, dude, I'm not making any difference. What the hell? I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do anything. Like, I just suck at this. And then I'd lash out and I would just be a real asshole. And they had this girl, and she was one of my absolute best students, man. She was so cool. And she disappeared one day. And, I went to her house. I couldn't find her. We called. I alerted everybody. No one could find her. 3 months go by. I'd forget about it. I turned the corner. I was getting my lunch, and I turned the corner, and I see this person that's shaking. She was like sitting down. She covered herself completely with her hoodie. Like, she put her knees inside her hoodie and could put her head up. And I didn't know who it was. And I went up to her. I was like, hey, what's going on? I tapped her and I looked up and it was her. And she was just crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, you have to promise not to tell anybody. And I said, okay. She had been kidnapped, raped, and impregnated by her stepdad, who forced her to drink a bottle of vodka a day until she had a miscarriage. Now, as a teacher, you're what you call a mandatory reporter, which means that you have to alert the authorities if there's abuse going on to a child. If you don't, you'll get charged with negligence. So I realized I had to break my promise to her, and I had to report this. And the last thing I remember her saying to me was, you're the only person I trusted. Right? And I realized in that moment I had to talk to myself and I had to say, did you do the right thing? Because you don't feel like you did the right thing, but let's be objective and let's be fair to Jimmy for a minute here.
For sure.
You protected a kid, even from themselves, right? You did a good thing.
For sure. And
so from that point on, I realized maybe I'm capable of doing good things, even when the situation is really, really nasty.
Do you still believe you did a good thing?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so and I've actually reconnected with her.
Oh, wow, good.
Yeah. But that's what made me quit teaching for 2 years. But the point I'm making is that, like, once I started actually seeing that I could be a force for good and I wasn't just this hurricane of negativity, then I started thinking, Jesus, who are the other little girls that I missed out on? Who are these other people in my life that I didn't take a minute to talk to? And that's where you came in. And I think I talked to you shortly after that happened. And I realized, Jesus, was Andrew one of them? Like, was I just completely blind to the pain that he might have been having? Was I completely blind to the insights he might have had? My little brother was another one, right? And so then I just started feeling like, Jesus, there's so many people that are just invisible, basically. And I'm guilty of making them that. And I've turned my eye. And I said, at least I wasn't as bad as them, right? But then I realized that they're maybe like that because of travesty and tragedy,
Well, we've all had, what that girl has gone through is obviously on multitudes of abuse. But all of us, I want to know who hasn't been through something,
Right.
All of us have been through something. And dude, you're a sweetheart, but there was plenty of shit wrong with me too.
But I don't want, what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to miss out on the parts of Andrew and other people as well. But, just as I'm talking to you, I didn't want to miss out on the part of Andrew that had something to offer, because what if you know something and you are able to do something that I can't? I'm not an artist, right? I don't bring beauty to people's lives, right? That's not, I will offload that to you. I will allow you to do those kinds of things to beautify the world, because I can't.
Right.
But you may not be able to be a public school teacher. So we have this trade-off constantly of saying, you have this essential function as an artist, and I have this essential function as a teacher, and let's work together.
I have this essential function as again, I've said it so much, but observant.
Yes, that's what artists do.
Yeah, and
right.
I really, and again, why my sobriety is so important to me is you said, I wasn't able to offer what I needed from me. I was just always high to the point where I felt me inside trying to climb out, and I'd have little moments where I'd get this great idea and it would fall short because I decided to get high. I needed to get high every day. I'd go, it was just a fucking mess, but that's all worked out now. But I think everybody has been through something in their life to make them something, which is, I bring it up all the time, and my mom fucking rules for it, but it's one of my first memories, and it was a white egg and a brown egg, and we made a 2-egg omelet using 2 different eggs, and the egg and the omelet.
Little Obama omelet?
Well, yeah. Well, the omelet ended up tasting like an omelet.
Right.
And that was that's what the point was.
Yeah.
And as soon as anything, we went different.
That's a wow.
And
that's really cool.
And there was always blinders. There's always the young blinders, because it's easy to judge someone by their shirt, their shoes, whatever, the way they're dressing.
Right.
their hairstyle, but I mean, when you're young, you make those mistakes. But I've always, as I got older, I try to do my best to remember white egg, brown egg, you know? And we're all just like one fucking omelet type deal. And it sounds so stupid.
That's not stupid. That's a really good object
but
lesson,
it's one of my first memories. And it's actually the same mentality that fuels this podcast is I think that in a time where the language barrier is spent between, I mean, I haven't talked to you since the 10-year reunion.
Yeah, probably. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And I was talking to my buddy Dan about this, and you messaged me, and somebody could have been like, "Hey man, when's the last time you talked to Jimmy?" I would be like, "Oh, I talked to him just the other day. He's coming over for a podcast." Oh, really? But we didn't talk. You know, we just kind of like sent each other some internet code that we've agreed meant that you're coming over at this certain time.
Right.
Conversation has never been, and from your end, what you're doing is you're saying conversation is so important because we can't even see the holes in each other's ships without having them.
That's exactly right.
And I said, you know, and from my stance is, you know what, Jimmy, that's a great idea. Let me build this harbor where we can look where we can look at each other, where we can look at each other's ships.
Right.
You know, because maybe there's holes in this ship that you don't see. And that's all I've ever wanted my podcast to be is I spent so much time trying to figure out what the fuck I am, who the fuck I am. And this is why I use the word observant. And I realized that, you know what, that's my identity. My identity is I will be the guy who takes a step back and is just watching this whole crazy world happen in front of me. And if I can help somebody who maybe is hopes to be a teacher and they're going through something really hard, the things I wouldn't do for them to be able to hear your story and be like, you know what, this makes a lot of sense to me. And that goes all the way from you to the fucking janitor, to the librarian, to anybody, to the lifeguard.
Right. And there's a Bible verse that jumped in my head that it's something like the path toward wisdom. The first step on the path toward wisdom is the fear of God, which take the religious stuff out of it for a second. It's the idea that you have to humble yourself before a greater power, before you're actually able to say, I know something, right? So you actually have to, when you first are taking on a new task, if you're learning how to be an artist or learning how to play the violin, you're going to suck for a little while.
Yeah, you have to admit, you have to know that.
Right. When you're trying to study law, you have to realize I know nothing about law.
Right.
And then even when you read a couple of books, you got kind of informed. Someone's going to come in. Like if all the opinions that I just gave, I guarantee you there's someone out there that could just flatten me intellectually. They can be like, you're wrong. And I'd be like, oh shit, you're right.
You know what, man? But there is. And there's always going to be somebody. And that's just the natural part of life.
Right.
But I hope that we engage a conversation that is more than just a 1-minute response to all the brilliant things that you've said. How long did we go for?
I'm sorry, dude. Am I taking too much time?
No, not at all. We're cruising. It's almost at 2 hours, but
it's up to you, man. You can stop whenever you want. I'll go longer, go shorter.
I just do 2 hours, and then because I do myself a disservice and everybody who's enjoyed this episode by keeping you on longer for that is because it brings anticipations of my guests. Like, for example, Samba Idol was on, and I think that there's some people out there who can't wait to have him. He came in and was talking about like the acidity in the body and being alkaline and how your blood reacts to alcohols and sugars.
Crazy,
and
dude.
On a physical level, like it makes them syrupy I only do 2 hours a guest to keep the keep the interest up. Yeah.
I got you.
Because if I give everybody 6 hours of Jimmy, I'm afraid that they'll one and done you. And
I'll tell you one thing, man. Regardless of whether it's on the podcast or not, we need to meet up again, man. This was super fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I need to do a better job of that. Is like I'm realizing that people are like, hit up Olin. What's Olin up to? It's like, dude, I'm not gonna hit up Olin. He's just gonna stick a microphone in my face. I'm getting that reputation, and that's not what I want. But yeah, dude, anytime you're down here, I think that these conversations that happen between me and you again are important for me because, like, I I need this information regurgitated to me. You know, I'm just the person. I'll look at articles, and it's not until that I'm looking at an article from the New York Times or wherever the source of information is coming from that I realize I am an artist. I get 3 paragraphs in and I'm just like, yo, are people being cool to people or what? Like, I'm just, it's seriously at this point that I'm like, I need it regurgitated and discussed.
Jordan Peterson brought up this point where he said the Gutenberg press for the first book was like, I don't know, 1400, something like that, 1300s. And we've been listening to campfire stories for millions of years, or humans for at least 100,000 years.
Right.
We've been talking to each other. Our brains are definitely more wired to listen than they are to read.
For sure.
Right? We've been making cave paintings since we were,
absolutely,
like the cavemen.
Right.
Right. So art and listening are two things. I mean, music is so prevalent because we are much more hardwired to listen than we are to read.
For sure.
Right. So it's no
I didn't even
shame.
think about that. Like how much older listening is than reading.
Oh my God, so much older. So is art. So like people are moved by paintings and moved by movies and moved by conversation much more than they ever would be by a book because, well, first of all, you can do other things when you're listening to a podcast. You could be doing the dishes, you could be working out, whatever. But you could also, it triggers a part of your brain that's ancient.
Yeah.
You know?
Primal.
And when you go and you see like a really badass piece of art, you know, for a moment, like I remember Ryan and I used to go around looking at Banksy's around LA. You're just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
you do the dog ears thing.
Yeah, right. And it's almost like the campfire effect where like there's like this crowd of people and you're all looking at this one thing like, Jesus, that's amazing.
Yes.
Because we are tapping into an ancient human function.
That's exactly what this is.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that. Me and Ryan had talked about that when we were talking about how the quality of people's personal lives are now quantifiable by numerically. Because of likes and people posting
it's like
every
that Black
single
Mirror
thing
episode.
it's like exactly.
Right.
And we were talking about the phenomenon. Did you ever smoke cigarettes?
Never in my life.
Good for you. So
Ryan smokes Parliaments though, if I recall correctly.
No, I think he's out for it. Ryan's doing his own thing. So, but you've had too much coffee. You've been over caffeinated.
For sure. Yeah.
Where you don't. Dude, I experience the same feeling if I've been on social media too much.
Oh my God, that is a fantastic point.
Like overload, like chemical overload. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%, dude. I think that's that way. Like online porn will do the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what we were commenting on is, well, first of all, we noted that was a phenomenon going on, but we were exploring to why this might be happening. And, one thing that we had to comment on is that it is, how unnatural is it that what someone from, I'm going to say tribe, but when I say tribe, I just mean who is living their life elsewhere. Mm-hmm. How unnatural is it that I know what somebody is doing from Iceland? And then I know what somebody from Japan is up to right now.
Right.
And like this, I know what somebody in Brazil is doing right now.
Right.
Absolute overload. And I think, and there's a statistic, I forget the episode. I think it was in, who's the not liberal gentleman on Joe Rogan's podcast, Harris?
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris. I think he had brought a statistic to the podcast that was the percentage of self-harm, non-fatal self-harm.
Oh, this was Jonathan Haidt.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you
Jonathan
remember,
Haidt.
And 9 to 11 has gone up, what percent? 200?
Like 60%.
It's something crazy.
Yeah, Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind. And you're dead on. This is the level, the hours spent on social media is directly proportionate to the number of self-harm episodes in girls ages 9 to 11.
That's exactly
right. So if you parachuted a bunch of smartphones into a school, boys would use them for video games. And there would be, there's its own problems with that, but it's not going to hurt them physically or,
oh yeah, that's right. This was in young girls,
right? In young girls specifically, they use it for their the female form of aggression, which is character assassination. And so that's where a lot of the self-harm comes in, is that girls are now never able to escape from the...
What's male aggression?
Physical. Right.
Physical
aggression. Female aggression usually takes the form of character assassination. Yeah. So you'll see like young girls that are like, you're ugly, you're fat. And I see this all the time. Right. My fiance, she's a school she's a marriage and family therapist, and she sees this all the time where girls are cutting themselves. I'm like, why are girls cutting themselves and boys aren't? Right? She goes, well, because boys externalize their anger and their violence, and girls internalize. And other girls know that that's what the girl does. And so when they pick on that girl, it's because they know how bad it would be if it happened to them. And so it's its own sort of violence. They're using a girl's own psyche as a weapon against that girl. It's horrifying.
Unknowingly, not knowing that the recipe for disaster, like vinegar and baking soda, makes a volcano.
No. They do it because they know that the girl will cut herself.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, so if, let's say I'm a bully girl and you're a weaker girl, and I go, you're a fat slut, right? I just walk away.
Which happens, I mean,
all the time.
Happened when in my age, way before even cell phones and shit. This has been going on forever.
If I know that if someone said that to me, I'd go cut myself, right? Then I take that little poison pill, I throw it to you, I put it in your brain knowing that you're going to go cut yourself, right? So that's the female form of aggression.
9-year-olds are doing that to each other?
You have no... Boys hit each other. Boys will beat the shit out of each other when they're in elementary school.
Yeah.
It's not... I mean, this is an ancient form of human psyche.
That's as primal as ours having a conversation around the campfire.
100%. It's how do I fuck with you?
And so you can't... So what's the solution? Well, a couple things I want to observe.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so if this is as I say animalistic as like an adjective that it's of savage nature. So I don't want to say animalistic. I'm going to say primal, and when I say primal, I mean from origins before
eons ago,
before civilized conversation.
I'm with you.
If aggression is a human condition from origins before civilization, then we can't plan on stopping the aggression. We have to remove the tools that amplify it.
This is the magic of the Western civilization, specifically. There's these things called hierarchies, right? And this is something that Jonathan Haidt talks about a lot.
Hierarchies is a phenomenon of Western civilization?
No. The specific type of hierarchy that we have. Okay. So when you open your eyes and you focus your eyes on something, I'm focusing on you.
Right.
I'm elevating you above everything else in the world because I'm staring at you. So I've already created a hierarchy, right? That hierarchy is that you're more important than anything else. Okay. So you're at the tip of the mountain. Okay. This conversation is more important than anything else that I could do with my time. So we create hierarchies all the time. They're a natural thing. The question is that
so it's a systematic process. It's just in the in the matrix of life. It's
exactly. It's just we create these hierarchies everywhere.
Okay.
And they exist in nature as well. They follow specific patterns. Anyway,
you call it a phenomenon?
Yeah. So there's this thing called the Matthew principle. It's a mathematical rule that basically that there's a specific number, like 10% of people do 90% of the work, right? Okay, so the idea being that there's a tiny subset of people that do a vast majority of the work, and this is true for composers. There's like 1% of all composers make like 99% of the music
in all circles of work.
I forget the name of the theory. There's a specific name of a mathematical theory that talks about this.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So we have these hierarchies. The question is that what hierarchies do we actually work? Like, what is the best one to develop a society around?
Okay.
Turns out the best one is to value the individual above the collective. Okay. So I do not see you as Andrew the white guy. I don't see you as Andrew the male. I don't see you as Andrew the long hair guy. I see you as Andrew. And within you, you are instantiated, you are given from birth specific rights that I cannot infringe upon, human rights. Okay. Right. That is a Western idea. By Western, I mean European/American. Okay. The idea
developed European.
Correct. So this is, and it comes from the Judeo-Christian background.
Okay.
Where Christ, the individual, was what saved all of humanity. Okay. So the reason why that's important is because if there is this problem of aggression, okay, I cannot infringe upon you because you're the thing that we hold at the highest level of our society. You are the individual. You're imbued with certain human rights. If I act with aggression against you, I'm sinning against the idol of our civilization, which is the individual. But if I'm in a collectivist society, a communist society, communal society. If you're part of that other group, I have every right to attack you because you represent a threat, right? So this is why I keep saying that, like, tearing down these differences, these identities is super important because we want to get to the individual. So the question was, how do you reduce the levels of aggression? You start seeing people as individuals. You take away their different identity veils, right? And you start seeing them as individuals, and you worship the individual. You give them freedoms like the freedom of speech, right? You don't give them these big labels like male or white or straight or all that stuff. You say, are you saying things that are true? Are you contributing? And are you protecting other people, or are you infringing upon their freedoms and their rights, right? Once you do that, you lower the levels of aggression. We don't have, for example, roaming bands of different tribes like they do in places in Africa, Somalia in particular, where my family's fighting your family, or in Rwanda where the Houthis are fighting the Tutsis, right? Why? Because who gives a shit about your clan? It's about you, the individual, right? And that's the miracle
in Western civilization.
That's the miracle of the West. Yeah. China doesn't have that. Very, very much not.
You know, this brings me back to one of my questions I wrote down in the book is what you had said, you'd expressed your pride for being an American. Mm-hmm. Is this one of the main reasons why why America is one of the best countries in the United States to you?
And one of the best countries in the world because
sorry.
Yeah, well, because in the United States, it's a little bit different than places like England. England for years and years and years had basically a caste system. It was in fact, they have, we have the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Right.
They have the House of Lords and the House of Commons.
What does that mean?
Lords are people that have titles. So like nobles, okay? People that were dukes and earls and princes and this kind of thing, right? In America, that was the House of Lords. The House of Commons were the elected members of Parliament. But they call them Lords and Commons, right? The upper chamber in the United States is the Senate. The lower chamber is the representatives, and they have equal power, right? So in the United States, we got rid of a lot of that bullshit, archaic sort of kings and queens and nobility. We never had that.
Is that because of we were more prone to be the antonym, if you will, for the power that we just broke from?
Yeah, we fought a war against King George, which is why every American who watched the fucking royal wedding are traitors, in my opinion. It's like we broke away from that for a really good reason, which is I don't want to have a nobility class here.
For sure.
You're born here, which means you are given rights as an American, which means that I have to respect you as an individual just because you were born. Now, the question becomes with like immigrants, this is a big problem with the immigration issue, is what magic do you have just because you were born on a chunk of soil called America? Why don't we include the entire world in this, right? Can we expand this to the entire world?
And what do you mean?
Like, can we treat the American idea of the individual to everybody? So everyone can come here and everyone should be able to enjoy American freedoms, right? Or do we just say only people that were born here or became naturalized citizens are allowed to have these rights? In other words, are these American rights or are these human rights?
I mean, it seems... it would seem backwards that people who are indigenous to this land are no longer granted access to it because of borders brought on by new civilization.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who go, look, the United States borders are these arbitrary lines in the sand.
Exactly.
Right? Just because you're born here doesn't mean that you're any better than someone from Mexico or Guatemala.
For sure.
So we should get rid of that border. Everyone should be able to come here and enjoy the freedoms that we have. The question is, to what extent do the borders actually protect the rights that we have here? So we aren't, for example, I don't know how much time you have, but this is a really interesting point.
Fucking go, man.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this too much.
So I'm going to take a quick tangent, but you're going to love this. So Israel and Palestine have a long-standing feud with each other. Israel became a state in 1947. After World War II, we realized that we needed to have a homeland for the Jews, okay? Because obviously they were fucked up in World War II under the Nazis, the Holocaust.
So what do you mean we decided it didn't already exist?
No, it didn't. No, the country did not exist before 1947.
Israel did not exist
before 1947. No, I mean, as a country, it existed. Like they called it the geographic area was called Palestine.
Got it.
So Jerusalem always has existed for 2,000 years, but the actual country of Israel is only, I don't know, 1947.
Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. So they displaced a lot of Palestinians who were living in that land to set up that country. The UN helped develop it, the state of Israel, and
kicked out a lot of the non-Jews.
A lot of the inhabitants that were there, yeah. And so now when they're talking about how do we bridge the divide between Israelis and Palestinians, one of the things that the Palestinians always say that they want is the right of return, the right to be able to return to the land that they were kicked out of. Israelis say no because the Palestinian women are less educated than the Israeli women, which means they have more kids, which means within one generation, Israel wouldn't exist as a Jewish state. It would become a Palestinian state. And so they said, if we allow this right of return, people to come in, and then they're going to overpopulate us, and what we have here won't exist anymore because it'll just become another Arab nation instead of a Jewish nation. So it's an example of how much do the borders of a certain country protect what that country has built. In other words, if everyone in the world was allowed to come to America, would we still have the same government? Would we still have the same rights? Or would we just import all of these negative ideas, all these ideas that we fought for 200 and something years to get rid of? Would they all just come right back?
Well, not negative ideas, just like systematic processes that we have found not to work.
Correct. And so this is why, again, people say like, oh, all the ones that want to build a wall are racist and xenophobes. It's like, or maybe the other side of it is, maybe they just really value what we have here and they don't want it to be overrun by other competing ideas. Just like the Israelis don't necessarily want to give their country away to the Palestinians with the right of return.
Now, what's the number of immigrants who aren't willing to assimilate?
I'll tell you that there's portions of the town I live in.
So what if? I mean, let me just make this clear before you get going on your thing again.
Yeah.
What are the number of immigrants who are like, hey, fine, if I'm willing to pull that mic up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What are the number of...
like Bane from Batman right now.
That's the point. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly, right?
The point are, I am curious about the number of people who are willing to come here and be like, hey, fine. Yeah, no problem. Whatever, taxes, fucking whatever, let me in, please.
Right. No, and that's a great question. I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. And that's an art.
Because if that's the case...
Right.
I'm willing to let those people in
as
soon as possible.
Me too. The question is that instead of being a melting pot, we become a salad. Yeah. So, a melting pot is everything gets dropped in, it becomes one little soup, one big soup.
Right.
In a salad, you have the lettuce over here sitting on top of the tomatoes, sitting on top of the cucumbers. They don't actually become each other. They're just mixed in a bowl. Right. So we don't have there's no America. Like on each coin, it says e pluribus unum, from many one, from many peoples, one nation.
Right.
Okay. We don't have that anymore. In a lot of places in California in particular, we have all these different groups.
What about the argument that we never were from nations of one? We were a bunch of Anglo-Saxon nations one.
That's patently untrue. There was always, in the United States, there was always people that were here. Maybe not that were always granted rights, but there was always slaves here. Since the beginning, since before in Jamestown, there were slaves. There was Native Americans here, right? So there's always been... and even if you don't count racial differences, when they were talking about the separation of church and state, Thomas Jefferson wrote that famous, there will be a wall of separation between church and state. The reason he wrote that was because different denominations of Protestant Christians were warring against each other. The Congregationalists were warring against I forget the other, there was two different kinds of Protestant Christianity. Like the Baptists and the Congregationalists were fighting each other. And they were fighting for control of the State House, I think in Connecticut.
And that's why...
Thomas Jefferson said, you know what, fuck this, we're just going to have no religion at all. So from many one meant from many religions one, from many races one, from many ideologies one. It doesn't matter. There's an America that supersedes all of your little differences. But again, going back to what we talked about before, if all we value are our diversity, we don't come to this Americanism.
Right.
We value you as the Somali American.
We don't keep chipping away at the statue that's already halfway built.
Exactly right. That's beautifully said. Exactly right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can go off about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's my biggest gripe with the current state of politics is that we are losing Americanism. It's a beautiful thing that we've built here.
And then you had mentioned that the media doesn't cover it. That's what you had said. You said, but you won't see that on the media.
Well, because the stories, if it bleeds,
Why
it
is
leads.
that?
If it bleeds, it leads. We're more interested, and also because there's a power.
If it bleeds, it leads. Huh.
Right. So victimization.
I understand. I'm just taking a second to digest that.
Victimization is more interesting than preservation. Okay? Being a victim is more interested than preserving something that's 200 years old. Okay? The other thing is that guys like Jesse Jackson, black leader, if racism disappeared tomorrow, he'd be out of a job. Right?
Because
what's
his sales pitch is
I'm going to advocate for black people. So there's an inbuilt incentive.
It's like the unions we talked
Correct.
about.
There's an inbuilt incentive. If all of the workers' rights were suddenly granted, unions wouldn't exist anymore. So there's incentives for there to always be problems. There's incentives like, okay, for example, we have to constantly find new ways of there being racism and homophobia in order for advocates of racism, homosexuality, and the different races to have jobs, basically. Right? Otherwise, those coalitions would just go away. Well, they can't have that happen because they have political power, right? So they actually have an incentive for there to be racism. They have an incentive for there to be homophobia. They highlight these tiny fringe groups, like the Proud Boys, or like these tiny little groups that are fucking insignificant, but they blow them up to a national level because that makes them relevant.
And the Proud Boys, like 16 dudes in Fred Perry shirts in New York or some shit.
I've never met.
It's like 13 dudes in New York who Gavin McGinnis has now disbanded. He's like,
and they complain about the same thing on the left. They go, well, like, not every fucking Mexican's part of the Mexican mafia. So why do you, Fox News, keep covering the Mexican mafia or the MS-13? Why? Because Fox News would be out of a job if all their people were fat, dumb, and happy. They have to keep them pissed off. It happens on both sides.
In your eyes, what do we do to fix the media problem? Do we better educate each other on what the media is? Like a better understanding of, hey, just so you guys know, this is the fucking boardwalk in Venice. These channels set up shop. You're walking by, and they go, hey, look at me juggle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great point. Right. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do we get to a point, and maybe this comes back to whether or not we decide Facebook and YouTube become public, is I think that the general opinion, and I could totally be fucking wrong because I'm an observer.
Hey, that's the place to be wrong.
Is news sources are now, I would say, more discredited than ever.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, I don't know the last time, and I think that it's even come down to where people only like certain people from stations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's not just Fox News, it's Fox and Friends. Yeah, it's Hannity specifically.
Yeah, but you could be like, I can't fucking stand Hannity. I can't fucking stand this person. Oh, fuck.
God, you're making such a good point here.
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
It's no longer like I remember at the Demuths back in the day.
Oh, yeah, Jeff,
it was fucking Pledge of Allegiance to Fox. Every day, and I didn't understand it, and I know several people.
I've always hated that.
Yeah. I don't see the productivity, and I say progressiveness not in its, I want to say I mean it in its classical term. In the progression, in the progression of human existence in society. I don't see the progressiveness and the, what was the word I used? Progressiveness, the productivity of partisanship.
No, and well, I do. I understand why people, because it drives ratings. It drives. I mean, again, if it bleeds, it leads.
Well, being part of a partisan group of swearing allegiance to fucking Fox News.
Well, I'll tell you this. Going back to Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, and the subtitle of that book was "How Good People Can Disagree About Big Things," something like that. So, in other words, like. I love Breezy. She's one of my favorite freaking people on earth. She's just such a special person.
Breezy, plug your ears.
We disagree about everything. Yeah. And we will have, I mean, she'll post something and I can't help my freaking self. I got to say something.
Well, right? I am worried. I'm going to speak generally on people as a whole.
Yeah.
I am worried, especially in the domain of social media, that the more organized and convenient a meme is packaged.
Oh my God, yeah.
Is the best it's packaged, and I'm a fucking designer, so the neatest way a meme that's the most reliable source of information.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Look at this. It's an angry picture of this person.
Right.
There's fucking blood on the sidewalk.
Right.
Look at how severe this statement is.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, for more memes, follow @ Big Dick Ricky or whatever, like a super fucking left field fucking, and that's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
You know what I'm saying? Because it takes, and if somebody like our good friend Brianna may or may not be susceptible to these.
I wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying that at all.
Neither am I.
Okay.
Neither am I. I'm saying people in general, if they are susceptible, not saying Breezy is at all. Matter of fact, Breezy has said things that I can see where she's coming from.
Oh, dude, 100%. She's made me do more thinking on Facebook than pretty much anybody.
There's people out there where even if you're wrong, I'll do my best to try to figure out how me and you can fucking...
Yeah. You're worth it. Yeah.
So long as it's not violent and hateful,
Yeah.
I can find something between us.
Sure.
But I'm worried because it takes... Let's take a girl, Rochelle.
Okay.
Not a Rochelle. A girl named Rochelle.
Hypothetical Rochelle.
Gotcha. If Big Dick Ricky's memes can take Rochelle by surprise and say, oh, look at this aborted fetus in this doctor's office, and there's blood everywhere. I don't like it. And that's 26-year-old.
Right.
And it takes the level, and abortion's a hot button topic. It can be anything.
Yeah.
It could be about fucking wildlife, public lands being sold to private organizations.
That's fucked up, but yeah.
Yeah. It could be however you feel. If it takes 26-year-old Rochelle a second guess to be like, whoa, hold on. Whoa, this is just a meme.
Right.
This could mean, this could be a line from Mission Impossible, with a fucking tag in it.
Right.
And a serious picture of Tom Cruise so everybody's buying it. If it takes 26-year-old doing that, what do you think 12-year-olds are doing with this information?
And how is it that we are training their brains to take in information in pill-sized form?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not teaching them to look at perspectives. We're teaching them to look at punchlines, right? And that's a problem. The reason I brought up Breezy was you asked, what do we do about this divide, this polarity that we're seeing?
Real quick, let me clear this up. Breezy, the only reason I brought you up, homegirl, is because...
I think I did.
Yeah, you did. There is a lot of meme sharing.
Okay.
And I urge a cautiousness to not only you, but to Breezy, to me, to everybody around here, that when we see memes, we take the extra second, just take a step back and be like, okay,
right,
what is this meme saying? First of all, let's acknowledge it's a fucking meme.
Yeah, right.
Which is a PNG rendered out at fucking 500 by 500, and that's all it is. Whatever information inside of it is just pixels that are organized close enough that we agreed are words and could say a certain thing.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I just really hope that we're taking the extra step.
Right. And you asked earlier a little bit about how do we get rid of that Fox News, MSNBC partisanship?
Yeah. Well, allegiance is a better word.
So I was going to give a personal example of me and Breezy. So Breezy will post things and I'll respond to her. And one of the things we did a month or two ago was we got into an abortion debate. And she, to her credit, she was like, let's take this into the messaging. So let's actually message each other.
I saw that.
Yeah. It was dope, man.
I had commented on it.
Yeah.
And you'd commented on my my response. Because I was like, wait a second. I forgot. I just kind of asked a head scratching question. Wait, if that's the case, then blah, blah, blah. And I believe, it was either you or my friend Nick that said, hey, they're not looking for, this type of meme breeds no conversation.
Yeah, well, and I wanted it. And Breezy was like, well, let's talk. And that what she did, I think, is the antidote to the partisanship. She goes, let's talk. Jimmy and Breezy, in the messages without this audience, over here, no one else can see this. Let's just
Which is huge.
Me and her talk.
Which is
right?
so important.
Yeah, and so she mentioned something. She said, like, this is real for people. Abortion is something that if you argue against it, right, and you have it go away, it impacts real people, right? And that human element was now entered into my understanding of this. And so it changes your perspective of things, that it's no longer a team sport, that I'm team pro-life and I want my side to win. That might hurt someone that I care about, like Breezy, right? And so taking the veil off, and instead of seeing people as like a avatar for another group, right? A representative of a group. We don't even see the individual half the time. We see them as a conservative. We see them as a black person. We see them as a Republican. We see them as a Trump supporter, right? Instead, you do the Breezy route, which is, let's take this offline for a minute and let's just talk.
Beautiful work, by the way, Breezy.
Yeah, right. And so that's what you're doing with this platform too. The antidote is fuck that. I'm not going to watch the news anymore. I'm going to talk to people and figure out, based upon their covering of my blind spots on my holes in my shit. Right. I'm going to develop and then also let's go to the library and maybe read a book or two.
By the way, of giving you the benefit of the doubt, add a restriction though. Like it's not, it would be wrong for me to be like, well, Jimmy fucking said it, you know? Like,
yeah, well, go do your own research. I say go to the library. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the onus is, that's the other beauty of the American system, is the onus is on you, the individual, to inform yourself, right? And then make decisions based upon your own research.
But 10% of the people do how much percent?
Oh, that's a great point. I think, if I recall correctly, there was a total of 49 million people around there that voted for Trump, and like 50 million, 51 million that voted for Hillary, something like that. So that's a grand total of like, 100 million people in a country that has like 350 million, right? So like less than a third of people actually voted in the election.
Well, how many people voted third party?
Oh, I don't even know. It's a good point. But the point is that
I voted third party.
A tiny chunk of the actual society actually votes. There's a debate as to whether or not, like places like Australia say that you have to vote. If you don't, you get fined.
For sure.
Right? And I don't agree with that because, again, you can't tell me what I have to say.
What about a vote of no confidence?
I just don't like the fact that you can compel me to speak, period.
For sure, but I think that's strange coming from you, somebody who is so thankful for the American values. That chance
I can do it if I want.
To participate. Oh, but you are even willing to extend the freedoms to the point where it's like, yes, that's amazing that we have that right, but I also have the fucking right to not even partake in that
right. It's not really a freedom. It's like, I command you to have fun. It's like, well, is it really fun anymore? Or did you just fucking tell me I have to do it?
Yeah.
Right? If you command me to vote, otherwise I'm going to fine you, that's not really me exercising a freedom. That's me acting out of fear.
For sure.
Right? So, I think that the idea that we have to become educated ourselves, we have to become informed ourselves. I think the number one way to do that is to talk to people with whom you disagree with some ground rules. One of the ground rules, the chief ground rules being, I'm going to take you as an individual, not as part of a group.
For sure. I'm
going to assume that you have good intentions, not bad intentions. And I'm going to separate your ideas from you personally, and I'm going to do the same for me. So like, for example, if you and if you and I are talking, right, and I say, I think art is a waste of time, okay, right? That would be a broadside against you because you're an artist, right? The hope would be that you were able to put that to the side and say, ooh, Jimmy's got an idea that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it as Jimmy attacking me as an artist.
Well, you'll redress it as an opportunity to be like, ooh, now I get to show Jimmy how fucking cool art is.
That would be a great point, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is to separate. It's like when you criticize Islam, you're not criticizing Muslims. You're criticizing the ideology of Islam.
Right.
If you say Christianity is a poison, as what did Karl Marx say, the opiate of the masses, right? You're not criticizing Christians. You're criticizing their ideology. We have to. That is a crucial thing that we have to separate out. You have to separate ideas from people. Otherwise, words become violence, and you have to shut people down like we see now with Antifa.
Right. Can I ask you a question, asking Jimmy personally?
Fuck yeah, dude.
Why don't you like Trump? And why did he push you to the disbandment of, I'm going to say, your Republican Party? Only because it sounds like you were pretty enveloped at your days at LMU.
A couple of things that I don't like about Trump is that he doesn't value the truth. He values getting elected.
Can I get an example? Because I don't have any... And it's almost, I don't want it to be called negligent or irresponsible, but I literally have strayed from all of it.
Me too. I don't pay much attention anymore.
I carry him as the predisposition. I even go to the way where I think maybe our whole presidential system might be a little outdated. I think
you are Joe Rogan.
I think. Well, no, I really do. And I like the council. I like the Jedi Council.
Hell yeah,
Elon Musk fucking shooting rockets in the sky. And this guy's the economist, and
right.
I can get behind that idea. I think
the boardroom. Yeah.
I think that I think Hunger Games fucked it up for me, dude, honestly, where they all get on stage and there's the fucking huge hair and it's the, let's bring out the and it's
doesn't that seem like Trump?
Well, it seems like the presidential situation, like the debates were so with the American flag fucking waving in the background.
God, eagle.
Yeah, the eagle comes in and fucking and like flies off and shit. The whole thing just seems so theatrical.
And they always say shit like, first of all, I just want to say God bless the troops.
Yeah.
And they fucking politicize bullshit like that I fucking hate.
Yeah, well, oh, I'm glad that you had brought that up, but I wanted to, so with moving forward, I hold Trump in the same regard as I hold Hillary Clinton, in that I think that there's a lot of backward shit going on. I think
it was that.
There's a lot of makeup on the character, if you will, but
lipstick on the pig.
Hillary, I mean, that's what I believe. Now, stepping back from that, if I could be like, in rugby, where it's like flag, you get a yellow card, and then after they walk away, the ref goes to the second guy who got the yellow card and talks to him like, hey man, you fucking do that shit again.
Right.
It's not only a red.
It's not just a sin bin, but you're out of the game.
Like, okay, so this is how I feel about Trump and Hillary. Trump, fucking card. Hillary, card. Both you guys suck. Hillary's walking away, and I go, Hillary, who the fuck did you kill?
You're right.
What's going on with you? What do you got going on? You drinking blood? What's going on over there?
How many pizza parlors are you having pedophile rings in?
Yeah, did you guys sell drugs back in fucking Tennessee? What's going on?
Oh my god, dude.
Dude, there's just too much going on with that.
I think that's one of the. Okay, so God, you. This is why I know I like you, because you spark these things in my head, right? I have like a billion different ways to go with this. Let's go with why do I not like Trump?
Yeah, let's address that, because it seems to be and I like your outside looking in, and I think that we should utilize your method of getting to the bottom of things, if you will. I think that it's fair. Let's give the fair analysis on why a disbanded someone from the Conservative Party has disbanded the party because of someone of the likes of Trump. How does that happen?
Because the idea of the Republican, so the heart of a conservative is one who. Can I tell a story and then get to that?
Dude, you can go about this. You can read a script from fucking Kill Bill and I'll fucking buy it.
What is a conservative and why is somebody a conservative as opposed to liberal? Okay.
Right.
Let's picture
classic liberal though. Not here, dude. I got so bent, like here, I'm going to do mine. You bend it here, it's like one tight tendon. Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. You pull it down.
Let's think about a football team, and let's think about
bend it a little bit more so it's not so. Do you push it in? Yeah, okay. And then there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
we're good.
Yeah.
So two analogies: football team and two monkeys. Let's start with the football team. A liberal is always trying to be progressive. They're always trying to move the culture forward, right? Which is a very, very important function. I'm talking about the American liberal, not classic liberalism. I'm talking that's very separate. I'm talking about the left in America, the left of American politics. They're very important for two reasons. One, they care about people, theoretically, they care about people that are dispossessed, that are poor, that are disadvantaged.
Which is something I believe in.
Number two is that they are constantly trying to move us forward in terms of culture, in terms of acceptance.
Which is another thing I believe in.
Okay.
Which is something you believe in too, right?
100%. They're the quarterback of the football team. They're trying to get the ball down the field.
For sure.
Republicans are the O-line, the offensive line. They're blocking people from coming in. They're blocking the negativity from coming into and infiltrating.
Sacking the quarterback.
Exactly, right? We can't move forward if we are constantly bombarded with these different contagions that are poisoning our entire culture, okay? Right. So the traditional role, that's why the military is such a conservative organization. They're the protectors, okay? That is why and actually Jonathan Haidt in his book pointed out that there's certain things that Republicans are more susceptible to. Republicans have higher levels of disgust. So they will consider things more disgusting than liberals will, than Democrats will. Democrats are more open, okay? And Republicans are more protective. So liberals are less likely to feel disgust. Conservatives are much more likely to feel disgust. So the question is like, well, what's the utility of conservatives then? If liberals are constantly moving us forward, Republicans just seem to be these closed-minded bigots that are trying to keep everything out. Let's consider the two monkeys. There's two brother monkeys, and they're going to go out hunting for food, okay? The liberal monkey's like, let's go to this new place, this new field, and let's go over there and find food. That's important because we need to constantly find new ways of finding food, right? But then the conservative monkey goes, there's a clear-cut path to the hunting grounds. We know it's free of predators, and we know that we're guaranteed food this way. Okay? So they have blind spots. The conservative, what if the path is blocked? What if there's no food in the hunting ground today, right? You need the liberal to constantly explore the unknown space, right, to help the society grow and expand.
For sure.
But you need the conservative to say, once we found...
The future-proofing.
Right. Once we found that new place, let's maintain our access to it. We can't have anything fucking this up. We're going to protect the borders of it to make sure that we have free access to it and that we're protected. So the left will create the hierarchies, and the conservatives will maintain it. Right?
Right.
The left will say, I value individual freedoms, which is why we should not care if someone's gay. That shouldn't be a crime. Right? They have to force the country to accept that. Once that's accepted, conservatives come in and they protect that from ever having changed. Okay? But liberals have to break through this conservative wall. Once they break that wall, we have this new progress, and conservatives protect it. And we move forward and protect. We move forward and protect. That's if we're working in concert. What we need to have in order for that balance, which is a very hard balance to maintain, in order to keep that balance, we have to have free speech. We have to be able to talk to each other. We can't set things off, right? Because the second you say, you can't say anything, right? You can't say that. The second we start doing that, we break down the communication. We're not covering each other's blind spots, and we fail instantly.
Right.
Okay? Republicans do this all the time. Conservatives do this all the time. Trump did this, right? Where he said, hit that person at my rally. That protester, un-American, evil, right? Someone should really take him outside and beat the shit out of him. I think it's almost exactly what he said. And it's like, time out, dude. That protester is just as fucking American as any eagle and flag waving person you can possibly imagine, right? Because they're the ones that are constantly going to be pushing us forward. Protesting, the hippies in the 60s were just as American as the people that were fighting in Vietnam. Okay? We have to understand that there's spectrums of Americanism. Trump is making that disappear completely. He's saying there's one way to be an American. And that is why I hate him and why I will fight to do anything that I can to make sure that he doesn't succeed. And I think that there's definitely, and the other problem is that he's building the left into this poisonous political side. You can no longer be a respectable Democrat, it seems like. You have to be part of this crazy leftist wave, and it's just insane.
And that's and I'm victim of that. When I was like, yeah, and I used the word progressive, I had to clear I had to clear the air, but I had to be more specific than just progressive because of the political climate of what progressive means.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
So in your eyes, is Trump even a Republican? Or is he just...
He's a Trump. He's Trump.
Yeah, he's...
I don't really think that he cares much for the United States. He cares about his own advancement, right? It's the dictatorial nature in him that scares me a lot too, which is when Mao Zedong took over in China, he basically developed the entire country into a worshiping machine. Right? Joseph Stalin did the same thing. Hitler did the same thing. Okay? To criticize Trump is you are automatically deemed illegitimate and fake news.
Yeah, what is that? So there's a lot of heat going on. Well, and again, me just from hearing the standpoints, but one of the arguments is, well, everyone rallied behind Obama when he was in office. Why isn't everybody rallying behind Trump?
Well, I think primarily because he doesn't give you any room. It's either 100% with or 100% against. You know, if you are,
do people package you as a Trump supporter by your ideas?
Oh, all the time, and I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to vote for him.
Yeah.
I one thing I do have to say that he has got I wrote this on my Facebook the other day, that he's got this inane ability, something that I think is interesting, maybe admirable, but I'm not sure, which is to get people to talk about him. The people that are running for president on the Democratic side, the Democratic candidates, spend a lot of their time talking about Trump.
He should have his own TV show.
He should. I think he did. Dude, you went right over my head. That's hilarious.
He fucking did.
I think that if they want to beat Trump, the way to do it, not say his name for 6 months. You know how crazy that would drive him? Because he dies in silence, man. Yeah. If people stopped mentioning his name and stopped giving him, because like there was I think it was either Pulitzer or Randolph Hearst, one of those yellow press guys back in the early 1900s, the guys at the newspaper magnates back in the day, you know, Hearst Castle? Uh-huh. Okay, I think it was him that said, I don't care what you say about me, just spell my name right. Because there's no such thing as bad publicity.
That's right.
Right? Trump is getting free rent, free airtime because the Democrats keep talking about him.
Right.
Right? They keep giving him credence. They keep giving him power because they keep talking about him. They don't talk about their immigration plan. They talk about how wrong Trump's is. They don't talk about their plans to advance women. They talk about how badly Trump treats women. They don't talk about their tax plans. They talk about how bad Trump's tax cuts are.
I wonder if that's a reflection of the climate of social interaction right now. I mean, that almost is like a grand scale of what your main argument for how society is interacting with each other right now. We are no longer... And we aren't criticizing. We aren't proposing solutions. We're identifying problems,
enemies, and trying to attack them. But and so I think one of the great dangers is what we talk about, what we promote, gets more powerful the more we talk about it. So, for example, if I'm consistently talking about how much racism there is in the country, that creates the idea in people's heads that there's a lot of racism, which means they start to see racism everywhere, which means racism becomes a bigger fucking problem, right? Because they're like, holy shit, there's these monsters out there that are trying to get me all the time, right? I'm darker than you, my skin tone anyway. I should theoretically be more fearful of the police than you are, if I believe what I'm hearing, right? So what we talk about, we empower that. And we can accidentally make it a bigger problem than it otherwise would have been, right? So we have to be incredibly careful of not only what we talk about, but how we talk about it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's another reason why I think that these victim ideologies are actually hurting themselves. Because if your only power and your only credibility is if you're a victim, you'll never want to become a non-victim, right?
Right.
If people give you credence, if you go as a black woman, as a gay man, that's how you start your sentence. What you're doing is and this is why I also hate terms like black pride or gay pride. You were born black. You were born gay. You take pride in things that you actually did, right? Taking pride in a genetic part of you just seems insane to me.
Right, but I think that the pride isn't just isn't, I don't want to say phenomenon, but isn't it the counteraction to years of being marginalized and maybe even abused in society?
Maybe, but I could. That's why I think that if you're willing to grant them that, then there's Teacher America has an entire branch in the Appalachian Mountains. It's one of the poorest parts of the country, and it's all white.
Yeah,
yeah, right. So, are they allowed to say white pride?
Well, under this idea, theoretically speaking, they are.
And
right?
the problem is that what you end up creating are tribes. The tribes start warring with each other, and then the question is, how does one win this war? By becoming more victim, becoming more and more and more and more of a victim.
So
I'm going to out-victim you, which means that my way of winning the political war, the power war, is by becoming
There you go, brother.
an even bigger victim than I was before the war started.
Right.
So my position gets worse, and that's how I win.
It's fucking crazy times we live in, man.
It's dude, and that's the thing is I think that again, I don't give a shit if you're a white straight male. You're a cool motherfucker, right? And that's how we should handle this. Is
right.
You know, you have tattoos. I don't give a shit.
Content and character.
Correct. Yeah, MLK got it right, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And that's that's one of the things that people should celebrate. MLK not only as an activist for equal rights, but in equal rights of all
of all people,
of all
yeah,
communities.
Man. Yeah, it's no wonder that we have a national holiday for him because we should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jimmy, if this podcast gets any longer, I'm gonna have to cut it into 2 pieces.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
I am just down the fucking road, and anytime you want to come on and bless this podcast with all of your insight and educated guesses, however you would like to package that, you are more than welcome to come down.
And I encourage people to write back to me, and if I got anything wrong, let me know. I'm probably wrong about a lot.
Jimmy Vlahos on Facebook. My man doesn't have, and we might have to get you. I think you do good with a Twitter, dude.
Hell no,
dude. You might want to get a Twitter.
No way.
No. Well, actually,
I don't want to spend any more time on my phone than I.
Well, that would be kind of against because I don't see you being like, 300 characters. Here I go. I take you as like a 15,000 character.
I'm a conversation guy.
Well, guys, this is Jimmy. He's one of the smartest dudes I know, and I'm nothing but thankful for you coming on, man. And
I appreciate it.
We'll set it up. We'll get you back on here.
Sounds good,
All
dude.
right? Give me some knuckles.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. All right, everybody. I'll be on Monday, hopefully, with Modern Color. Peace out. Dude, that was super fun, dude. You were